All right, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Thursday, August 20th, 2026, 6 p.m. edition of the Auburn Zoning Board of Appeals. My name is Robert Tatro. I am the chair, and I'm calling this meeting to order. I just have a few administrative things that I have to get through, and then we'll get started this evening. So first, is anybody recording the meeting this evening? Okay, hearing none, seeing none. You are allowed to record, you just have to declare yourself. If you have any electronic devices, if you could turn them down to either a silent or vibrate mode, please, that would be much appreciated. And if you want to speak on any of the matters this evening, if you could just sign in over here when you have a moment. Also, this is being recorded, and it will be replayed on the Auburn YouTube channel for actatv.com. You can look that up at your convenience if you want to replay the meeting this evening. And before we get started, if you all want to rise and join me in the salute to the flag. Sorry.
That's right. Thanks for giving me a minute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Be seated. Okay. And I already mentioned this before, but we do have a busy agenda this evening. We're going to try to be efficient and quick as we go through it, and we'll be as thorough as possible. So we have a first hearing this evening. It's 6 o'clock p.m. Applicant Mast Futures LLC requesting an amendment to special permit condition number 3 for the special permit approved on April 16th, 2024 for the indoor amusement facility planned on 615 Southbridge Street, map 55, parcel 7, and this is continued from the 7/16/26 meeting. Is the applicant present? Gentlemen, if you could just approach the lectern, please, and give us an overview of what you try to accomplish. Do I have a motion to open the hearing?
Motion open, Mr. Chairman, but are we open? Is this a continuation?
I don't recall if we actually closed it, to tell you the truth. Did we close it?
I don't think we opened.
Or, I don't think.
Okay, so we don't have to. This is a continuation. Thank you for that correction. To you, sir.
All right, good evening. My name's Tim Johnson. I'm here on behalf of Mast Futures on 615 Southbridge Street. So we're here to ask the board to amend the condition 3 that was on the special permit approved in June. Currently, it is only permitted to Mast Futures, which I own Mast Futures, of course, but Mast Futures is going to own the property. It's not going to own the golf simulator business. So that's the difference that I have right there. So my wife and my kids, they're Mast Futures, but the simulator business is going to be separate. So I just don't want to have liability on them for that reason. So I'm looking for be able to have a transfer and still have the special permit. Nothing else changes. Everything that the board has given us to run for the conditions is going to stay the same. It's just really to make it transferable. It could stay with the building, we're fine with that, but yeah, if it ever changed entities or anything like that, then we'd like to be able to have that already approved and continue on.
So do we have any people that want to make a public comment on this matter? Hearing none, seeing none, I'll go to you, Vice Chair.
Mr. Chairman, before we go to the applicant, I believe that there was some information circulated by the assistant town manager regarding the transferability of a special permit.
Correct.
And I just called it. I don't know if you have that in your packet
I do.
by any chance, but I wonder if we could review and reflect on that first.
Certainly. So what we have here is, again, from the assistant town manager, members of the ZBA, based on questions we have received from the board members and the applicants, I've had a number of discussions with the town planner, Rose Russell, regarding the transfer of the special permit, so I want to share a summary of thoughts ahead of Thursday's meeting. According to Mass General Law, Chapter 40A9 provides special permits may be issued only for uses which are in harmony with the general purpose and intent of the ordinance of the bylaw and shall be subject to general or specific provisions set forth therein. As such, permits may also impose conditions, safeguards, and limitations on time or use. The language specifically uses the term may as opposed to shall here, which implies it is optional and not required. Also, Mass General Law, Chapter 40A10, variances, including any conditions, safeguards, or limitations based upon the continued ownership or land or structures, which may have a variance pertains to the applicant, petitioner, or owner. So the board cannot provide any assurances that a special permit amendment to change an operator in the future would be approved. We would urge the board to consider the risk an applicant developer is taking on the construct of the golf facility or indoor amusement recreation. with the perpetual condition that the permission operate is solely tied to the current applicant and the future financial implications of such. Regardless, any substantial change in the use or configuration of the facility would already require an amendment to the existing permit at the building inspector's discretion. Is the board comfortable with this safeguard? I believe that we are. Another option to consider is to add a condition such as this approval is for an indoor golf facility at 615 South Street only, and any future change that the specific use shall comply with the zoning regulations in place at that time. This avoids ownership issue. Further, we will note the board did not require any conditions related to hours of operation or operational aspects of the business, which would be appropriate if we had specific concerns. If it did not have operational concerns, especially with the hours until midnight some days, what does making this special permit non-transferable actually accomplish? Accordingly, if the board has specific operational concerns like hours or outdoor dining, which is not proposed, that could change with the different operator. Staff would suggest that you condition it upon the operational concerns rather than the operator itself. So that is the guide that we've received so far from the town side. So are you satisfied with that reading?
I am, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
And so I just, for the applicant's opportunity, so I'm not opposed to what you're proposing tonight. I think it's a division of ownership that you want to make clear. But what's been stated as far as the guidelines of the special permit, do you have any questions with regard to that guidance?
I don't believe so. I mean, I think as long as it's transferable, I understand that if it was going to change use or anything in any sort of, variation from what's approved, then yeah, obviously I would agree with having to come back for a special permit. But if we could just have it, if it's transferable, that for the use that it's permitted as, great.
Okay, great. And I just want to give you that opportunity so that you could be heard on that, because I don't see that this obstructs the transferability of the special permit based on what we've been provided. I'll reserve, Mr. Chairman, but I don't have anything additional for the applicant.
Okay. Mr. Cussy?
No questions.
Okay.
I'm good.
Ms. Bush? Mr. Damiak?
So I'm going to chalk this up to being a newbie, although it's no excuse. Typically you should read something before you sign it. So I was a little surprised when I signed this to find out that there were in fact special conditions, because I didn't know we had put any on here. But I don't have any issue with this one in particular, but did you look at special condition number 4 that talks about hours?
So I did, and I heard that hours were not limited.
Well, it says hours of operation, 8:30 a.m. to 7:30 p.m., Monday through Saturday, and then it says, and limited to one client at a time by appointment only.
So that was an error that we actually corrected. I think it was the following month. It was kind of an overlap between two different hearings. And I think that was Scribner error? What would it-
Yeah, Scribner.
Scrivener's error.
Yeah, Scribner error. that we
Okay,
corrected.
yeah, I asked for a copy of it, so this was the latest copy that I was given.
Understood. No, and that's, actually, I'm glad you brought that up, because that was a correction that we had already made.
But yeah, did we talk about conditions last, like when we approved this, I didn't remember us putting
No,
any
we actually
conditions.
didn't concern ourselves.
So that's why I was a little surprised that something like, is this something that we just typically put on the conditions
So I
that limit
think,
it?
through the chair, I think as a board, we typically do condition our special permits to be non-transferable. As a board, for years, we've done that. It typically has been more of a hot topic item when it is an in-law apartment or when it's someone coming, which is majority of what we see for SP requests. In that realm, I think we always felt comfortable limiting it on purpose so that if the ownership changed, it would have to, I think we have sort of become known as a board that always puts that condition. So when we say our standard conditions, we add that. I am the one who reached out to the town manager to ask for some guidance on this, because I think in this instance, it obviously does not make sense. We can't let them build this whole thing and then say, oh, but you're stuck with it now.
Right.
But I think as a board, we have very often said our special permits, we did not want people coming and having in-laws and apartments and then being able to sell them. Obviously, with the ADU law, that is no longer a thing, so we cannot, sorry, Mr. Marin, we cannot condition that any longer. But I think involved in our standing conditions, we typically do limit that.
Okay.
Yes. Something we'll have to think about in the future, because I think we just
Yeah.
did it as standard, and then once the applicant actually went through it and realized it, they asked us to change it. But yes, as a newbie, we typically do condition
that.
them for non-transferability.
And again, shame on me for not reading it before I signed it, because I would have seen the Scrivener's error.
If I can just further,
They attach that page of like special conditions.
Oh, so that's why I didn't see it.
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
I mean, as Ms. Roach had said, I mean, there's going to be a considerable build-out in a major investment in this. And so if there were a change of ownership, I would not be in favor of limiting the transferability of it. I'd like a different operator to have an opportunity to come in and take on that infrastructure so that they don't have to do a complete deconstruction of it. I think it makes sense for this business.
So my question is, so your intent is to sublet it? Is that really what you're going to do? You're going to lease it out to the operator of the screens?
I will also be the operator of it, just to be a different holding company.
Oh, okay, I understand that. All right, just for the record, I want to make sure I
But
understood.
we are looking for, like, in the future, so, for instance, everybody would love to retire someday. So if I wanted to retire, say, 15 years down the road, and that business is worth something and it's still operating just as well, I don't understand why a purchaser would have to come back to get another special permit for a business that is already operating and remains the same. I'm just trying to get clarity on it. I just, if it's not changing use, I just feel like it's a crazy thing to do.
Sure, and that's understandable, but again, I think what Ms. Roach pointed out so well was that if we have a business with a special permit in town, special permits traditionally, they expire with the current receiver of the special permit, so such as yourself. If you were to transfer that building to new ownership, they would come before us, and we would go over, basically, so we can go over the conditions, make sure they understand it, and that they accept it. At least that's how I view it.
There's no other way to do that versus making them come for a special permit? Now, again, this is not in my future, but I have sold a business before, and, I've never seen it. I've only seen it in Auburn. I've never seen it in Worcester or anything like that, so I'm just trying to make it streamlined someday,
Understood.
Because if the person was to come in and go for the special permit and get denied for some weird reason, this board changes, people's thoughts in this town change, I just don't understand how, I could lose out on the opportunity, and now I just have a building that I'm not able to run, or I'm older or whatever,
Yeah, so if we remove the special condition, he can sell it to whoever he wants. Or again, I think what he's saying is he's not going to sell it. He wants a different LLC to operate it.
Right.
With different
Yes.
names, and he cannot do that unless we remove that condition. Even if he is still the owner of the LLC, he cannot transfer the permit to the new LLC without us removing the condition. And then, yes, in 15 years, if he sells it to Joe Schmo, then Joe Schmo will not have to come and get a special permit unless he is changing the use. If Joe Schmo wants to add a bowling alley and outdoor dining, we will see Joe Schmo back here.
Yes,
Right.
that was my
Yeah,
that was my
understood.
thought.
I can appreciate that.
Yeah.
So I noticed that we've had quite a few more people walk in the room. Is anybody here would like to comment on the particular hearing that we're working on now? This is our first one for this evening. It's the Mass Futures LLC requesting a special permit at 615 Southbridge Street. And if anybody wants to comment on any of the other hearings that we have this evening, there's a sign-in sheet here, if you want to pass that around. Okay, so do we have any concerns or questions here? Okay.
No, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, on this side. And just for the record, Mr. Shea and Mr. Adamiak are our alternates, so it'll just be the standard 5 members voting this evening, just so you're all aware. And that will apply to every hearing. So do I have a motion, do I have a motion to close the public portion of the hearing?
Mr. Chairman, motion to close?
Do I have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, seeing none. So do I have a motion on the 6 PM applicant, Mass Futures LLC, requesting an amendment to special permit number, condition 3, for the special permit approved on April 16, 2024, for the indoor amusement facility planned on 615 Southbridge Street, map 55, parcel 7, continued from 7/16/26.
Sure. I'll make a motion to approve the applicant's request to amend the special permit by removing condition number 3 from the decision that was approved on April 16th, 2024, for the indoor amusement facility planned at 615 Southbridge Street, map 55, parcel 7.
Well done. Do I have a second on that?
I'll second
complicated-
as stated.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, seeing none. All set, sir. Good luck.
Excellent. Appreciate you. Thank you very
We're
much.
looking forward to having that business hopefully sometime in town.
Do. Thank you.
All right, do I have a motion to close the 6 PM hearing?
Motion to close, Mr. Chairman.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Okay, so that hearing is officially closed now. We've completed it. One of the other things, if I could ask for, folks, is when, it's fine to come up here and sign up while we're in between, but as you're leaving this evening, I know you're probably not aware of this, but because of that open wall, if you communicate out in the hallway, it becomes a speaker, and it really kind of drowns us out. So if you have any communication after the hearing and you're leaving, if you get through the double doors on the stairway before you start talking, that would really be helpful to us. So, thank you. Okay, so the next one, we have a 6:05 PM applicant, Jared and Elizabeth Webb, for an administrative appeal under section 3.2.5.0 of the Auburn zoning bylaw to appeal the cease and desist order for Sniff Spot at 3 Ashworth Street, map 52, parcel 15. Presently on the premises is a single-family dwelling. The subject property is located in residential RR zoning district. Do I have a motion to open the hearing?
Mr. Chairman, motion to open the hearing.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, seeing none? Okay, so this is for the 6:05, and I take it you're the applicants, correct? Okay, and I understand you might be representing them, sir? Is
Mr.
that correct?
Chairman, Attorney Michael Shivik for the Webbs here on the appeal.
Okay, if you'd like to just go ahead and give us your presentation, please, sir?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, Mr. Vice Chairman, esteemed board members and town staff, thank you for having us here tonight. We appreciate your consideration of this appeal of the building inspector's cease and desist order, telling my clients that they should no longer operate what's called a sniff spot. I've reviewed the videotapes from the last meetings. I'm aware that the individuals on the board and the town staff are aware of the content of the what a sniff spot is and what the appeal is about. My clients, their argument is relatively straightforward. It's whether Section 3.2.5.0 applies to a sniff spot or whether it's limited to a retail operation. My clients would proffer that there is no retail operation happening there. What they essentially do is run amounts to an Airbnb for dogs on a very limited basis, not an overnight thing, a couple of hours a day. The board is probably aware that this is a residential R-zoned section of the town, and there is another kennel operating within about a half mile of my client's property, Collinsworth, on 84 West Street. And they run a fine operation, and no one's calling that into question. However, it's a much more extensive operation within the same zoning district. There's boarding, there's training, there's grooming going on there, and there's it seems to be a substantial size structure on the property. Even though it does, maybe in the mind, get a little muddled in with the Republic facility and the Water District facility down there, it is still in the residential R, and then that side of West Street over to Hardscrabble Road becomes an industrial zone. So there's still residents there. I'm sure you're aware that there's railroad tracks going through that section of town. The Mass Pike is going through that section of town. Topograph, you're aware of Topograph. You guys approved that. Excellent facility. They're building, I think, at least 100 units up right behind my client's house there. And then what we could call the Cumminsville Road West Street Turnpike that goes through there, which is a substantial amount of traffic that flows through there on a daily basis. So my clients, first, again, believe that it's not a retail operation, so it shouldn't be governed by the order of the building inspector, who we respect his authority and probably attempts to regulate this maybe as a commercial situation, and we don't question the policy behind that. But when we look at the fact that there's already been approved since the 80s, a kennel on a much grander scale within, I'd say, a half a mile of their property in the same zone, in the same area of town, we don't see a ton of difference. And I'm not accusing it of being like a reverse spot zoning issue, because it doesn't quite fall under that penumbra, but what it does is give us a little bit of leg room to stretch out and say that this is probably a permissible use. And if we look at section 3.2.2.6, there's a ban on lodging in those districts, but there does seem to be an exception for 4 overnight guests that are paying guests, which resonates in a way that says that it's like an Airbnb exception for residential homes in that area. So because it's on a limited basis, because of the nature of the neighborhood itself and again, the railroad, the Mass Pike, the pseudo Mass Pike that runs through there, the pre-existing kennel, and I believe there's a shooting range over there with the Auburn Sportsman Club. The addition of a few dogs on an hourly basis, we don't think has a substantial impact on traffic or on the character of the neighborhood or on noise in the neighborhood. So we'd ask the board to overturn that order, not in a way that's, not trying to be accusatory or anything, but we do think that it should be a permissible use, and that I think we've noted at prior hearings that if there isn't something that's exactly on point to regulate the use or non-use, then it becomes a potential due process issue, and the only way to make zoning laws is to go through the process in 40A and go through town meeting and have a vote. So we'd ask you to allow my clients to continue to operate this pending some type of new legislation. And with that, I'll turn it over to the board, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any abutters that want to comment on this particular hearing? Okay, if you haven't signed in already, if you could do so, please, and then come up one at a time. And also, for the record, I just wanted to point out that I received 3 emails regarding this from Robert Lemansky, Thomas Sobocinski, and Bryce and Laura Keeler, and we have 1 against and 2 for in favor of this. Go ahead, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Board. I would like to ask everybody if they remember the jingle bells with the dogs barking, because that's what it sounds like when the bark spot is operating. Well, would you like me to repeat that? I'd love to. Actually, if they could teach the dogs to do that, it'd be quite amazing. I wouldn't mind. But anyways, I think what we're looking at, I'd like to refer the board to Section 3.2.5.6 of the Auburn zoning bylaws for an outdoor amusement or recreation facility, which is defined in the bylaws as outdoor facilities open to the public for a fee or admission charge, such as mini golf, boat launch, equestrian center, but does not include temporary structures. And I think what we have here is an outdoor amusement center. And if you look at the zoning bylaws on page 9, under section 3.2.5.5, outdoor amusement or recreation facility is not allowed in zoning district RR. Plain and simple. This should have never been allowed to happen in the first place, because it's an outdoor entertainment facility, and it's just not allowed in the Auburn zoning bylaws.
Okay, does anybody else want to comment? I agree. I'm sorry? I agree. Well, you'd have to come up, I apologize, but you have to come up, and we have to be able to hear you in the microphone, ma'am. If you give us your name and address and your comment, please. Yes, please. We have to get you on record and for the folks at home.
So, my name is Laura Keeler, and I live at 526 Rochdale Street. And we can hear the dogs barking during the day all the time. And we live in a residential neighborhood. That's the way it was when we built our house. It's on a street with other houses. There are houses on either side of Ashworth Street. It's not like the kennel, Collinsworth Kennel. That's down by, like you said, the trash place, right under the Mass Pike, which I think is why they're allowed to build it there. And as Bryce said, they're operating a recreation there. And even when the Sportsman's Club does its Halloween thing every year, they have to notice that out for permission, for the music, for the entertainment. That's not a given. So I oppose it.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
Through the chair, could I just ask her a
Oh,
question?
you can. Oh, sorry, ma'am. Can you come back to the microphone for 1 second? We have a member that would like to ask you a question.
I just missed your address, I'm sorry. Could you just tell me what your address is?
526 Rochdale?
26 Rochdale. Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Hi, Robert Lemansky. I'm at 537 Rochdale Street. I believe I'm the closest abutter to 3 Ashworth here today. And honestly, if you told me they had more than one dog there, if you didn't tell me, I would not have known. The noise, we have a 13-pound dog ourselves. It makes a lot more noise than that. And I'm not saying that you should take our dog away, but there really is no impact. There's no traffic impact. At the most, there's 4 cars there on a weekend day. As far as the noise on 526, I believe that house was built well after this house was there established, so perhaps they shouldn't have cut down all the trees, and maybe there would be some noise dampening there, and they wouldn't have experiencing the noise that they say they have. Like I said, Century Sportsman's Club, not only do they have the Halloween outings there, the hay rides, but every weekend they've got something going on. So if there's any noise impact, it would be much greater from the Century Sportsman's Club than it would be from 3 Ashworth. It's simply just, it's a non-topic. I believe they were granted permission to hold the business, and I don't think they've done anything to have that opportunity relinquished. It's not often you find somebody with a passion that they can call their business, so I wouldn't want to take that away from them. A dog barking, I just don't see it. We are directly across the street from them. My mother and I mean, she was visibly upset to hear that somebody might be trying to bully them as far as to trying to shut down and take their livelihood away. I just don't think the board should take that livelihood away. There's been absolutely no negative impact on our lives, and I don't believe there's been a negative impact on other people's lives. That's all.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Again, Bryce Keeler, 526 Rochdale Street. And I'd like to thank Mr. Lemansky and his expertise in forestry. And I would like to refer to council with his, when he was talking about the Collinswood kennel, the topography, because I just wanted to remind the board that my front yard looks down on their backyard. So with the fence, the stockade fence all the way around it, it acts like an echo chamber. So it's like Great Woods. You were talking about how people talk outside here, and you get the noise bouncing over. I think that's what we have from the bark spot at 3 Ashworth Drive. Thank you.
If the applicants would like to approach the lectern again, I can turn it over to the board and we can have some discussion. To you, Mr. Vice Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening.
Mr. Maron.
So, I did hear your brief. I just want to be clear, what use are you indicating that this would be appropriate under? I know you mentioned and used some words about stretching it and fitting it, but what use particularly were you recommending that we consider for this activity?
It's less about what you should consider it to be and what you consider it not to be. And I think what I referenced was the lodging section that I cited, and the exception.
What section? I'm sorry, sir.
Sure. It's 3.2.2.6, I believe. It's a lodging section.
Okay.
Where there's a prohibition on any type of lodging, except there seems to be an exception for overnight guests of 4 or more that are paying, which seems to be an Airbnb exception,
Okay.
for lack of a better term.
Okay, so you're comparing that as an exception, not a plug-and-play for this activity?
We're talking about...
Because you're kind of losing me on why we're talking about an Airbnb to fit this business.
It's from a policy standpoint, we're saying it's essentially the same thing, but on a much smaller scale.
Okay.
And when you consider the use of the Collinsworth kennel, I know that there may be a topographic issue, topograph aside, that there happens to be a much more extensive use within the same district within a half a mile. And there's, the gun range is there, there's a large construction entity going on there, so...
Yeah, no, I appreciate it, and I won't ask you to repeat. I mean, you threw a lot of that out at the argument.
Yep.
And I get it.
Sure.
I well understand the saturation of the area.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Chairman, I'm going to reserve, please.
Thank you. Mr. Cussy?
I'll reserve. I want to hear the
Okay.
other board members.
Ms. Bush?
I don't have any specific questions at this point. I'll reserve.
Ms. Radaniak?
Yeah, I guess just going back to sort of what the vice chair was saying, I'm just curious, if you had to apply for a special permit or variance, what zoning bylaw do you think would you specifically apply under that section, or what section do you think?
I don't think it's amusement, that's for sure. I think amusement is more like maybe like a Millview amusement park from bygone days, or a batting cages. This is a use of my client's own property, having dogs over during the daytime. The hours are limited from 10 to 4, so it's not even an overnight thing. So I wouldn't even consider it a lodging issue. I would argue that there's actually nothing covering this in the bylaw, and that there could be attempts to stretch the bylaw to try to make it cover that, but we think it's actually not covered, and that the board may need to work to promulgate actual bylaws that cover this. Otherwise, I think the jurisdiction is limited, with all due respect.
So you're saying a special permit or variance at this point isn't needed? For
I
this
mean,
business?
we could apply for a variance if that's what tonight we're here on a,
No, I understand. I'm just trying to figure out like which section of the bylaw you think
it's a great
applies, and
question.
you're saying...
No, it's a great question.
I
It's
think
a
your
great
answer is,
question. However,
right now, there isn't one.
that's what it appears to be. I mean, I'm not perfect. I could be
No,
wrong, but
no.
I couldn't find, it's not a funeral home, it's not a lodging, it's not an amusement park. But with everything else that's going on in there, it doesn't seem to be the most disruptive thing that could possibly be happening. And you've heard testimony from one of the neighbors saying that there's absolutely no impact whatsoever.
Okay, thank you.
I apologize if I'm not trying to dance around your question, but I do appreciate it. Thank
I'm
you.
not trying to do a gotcha.
I just want to, again,
Curious
reiterate
as
that
to your opinion on the bylaws.
that it operates from 10 to 4, and that there's no nighttime issue, so if people want to come home and drink their iced tea or whatever, that nobody is going to be disrupted by that.
Thanks. No further questions.
Mr. Shea?
I don't know. This subject, when it came up the last time, we went round and round and round and round. And how many dogs did you have before you asked us for the kennel permit?
Are you asking about when we applied for our kennel license?
Yes, when you applied for the
You have
kennel
to approach
permit,
the
how many
microphone, please,
dogs
ma'am.
did you have?
That's okay.
When we applied for the kennel license, we had 5 dogs.
And you wanted the kennel license to add one more?
No, it was because I had 3 dogs, I had a litter, I kept 2 puppies. When the puppies were of age to be counted as dogs, we applied for the kennel license.
And if you remember, I spoke on this and I said, I can see what's going to happen is if you're given the kennel license and you're saying that there will be no more dogs added, but I brought up the fact of, well, it's always that possibility that a relative or a friend is going to say, geez, I'm going away for the weekend, could you take care of my dog? And you adamantly said, no, that won't happen.
No, I didn't.
Now, all of a sudden, we're adding a bark and sniff spot here. And to go a little further, you're bringing up a kennel that's down the road, okay? Mrs. Collins has been operating that kennel for a good number of years, okay? And prior to her being there, that was a business-zoned area because the gentleman that had that property beforehand owned a septic pumping business. I feel that if you're going to bring up Mrs. Collins's business down below, that she should be here to defend herself.
I'm a personal friend of Terry Collins. We've spoken of it. If I had known that I could have requested that she be here, but I think we're mixing.
Dealing with what happened the last time, be glad that I'm not a voting member because I would vote this down.
Okay.
Ms. Roach?
So, with respect, again, to everyone else on the board, the only question we are talking about tonight is, does the cease and desist order make sense under 3.2.5.0? End of sentence. That is the question we are answering. We are not answering anything else they have done before us. We are not even answering whether or not we like the sniff spot. That doesn't matter. What matters is, does the sniff spot qualify for a cease and desist under 3.2.5.0? That's it. That's our authority. That is the question. We've got 4 other hearings behind this. I think we move on.
And I agree. And so, and just to go into what 3.5, excuse me. Oh, you have it, thank you. 3.2.5.0 is, so this is under retail store and sales. An establishment engaged in displaying and selling goods, merchandise within a building to the general public or business establishment which goods or merchandise are not intended for resale except that a garden center, florist, commercial greenhouse may have open-air display or horticultural products. So the real question is the cease and desist order accurately portrayed under 3250? And I would just like to remind also everyone here, I think the conversation was, even though, again, we're applying to this, the conversation was whether or not they had the opportunity to operate a home-based business with the sniff spot. It wasn't that the sniff spot was operating, it was whether or not they needed a permit for a home-based business. So I think there might have been some confusion along the pathway as to what the method or steps of clarifying this could have been. So, but I would agree with Ms. Roach, is if this really does apply under 3250. So I think if we stick to that, we can wrap up this discussion pretty quickly. I don't think it applies to 3250, at least in my mind, but we can have that discussion after we close the public hearing.
Very good. Before we
Do you want to
close,
let Garrett?
Yeah, I do. I actually want to have the town side
Yeah, of
communicate
course.
as well.
It would need a variance, right? I mean, if you were going to try to...
Well, under RR, we can have a small business, I believe, correct? Is that RR?
we can't,
Oh, we cannot. Okay, never mind.
and that's why they went this way.
3.2.5.0 is actually a typo. The 0 is not supposed to be on there. It was the main heading under the business uses, because there are no business uses allowed in the RR district. And the one that fits that most closely, of course, this is a little different than the other version, but it's the same thing, the outdoor music park or recreational facility. And where it crosses the line is the same place we cross the line on any business like this is, are they doing this for a fee? We went through this down on, I think, was Montclair here with the tractor repair gentleman. I mean, if he's working those for his friends, it's not a problem. As soon as he did work for the town, we were able to track that he was paid a check for his services. That crossed the line. If you're getting a fee for it, you're not allowed in that district to do that. And that's what I cited them on for that. And that was a typo. I have typed up a new one. If I need to send it out, I will. But that is the crux of how I look at them. I believe we've been consistent with that. That's the way Caleb did it. Adam and I talked. That's the way anytime we viewed these. When we tie the fact they're doing this and they're charging money from the public, that is a retail business that's not allowed in that district. Plain and simple. And that's just the way it's issued.
Understood.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
If I may.
You may.
And I greatly appreciate Ms. Roach and you narrowing this discussion. And I will hold to my commitment to behave this evening. But I've got one, I think we can be tight on this. I've got one follow-up question for the applicant, just to get it on the record, because I know the answer to this, because it's part of the discussion to Mr. Allard. So this sniff spot, that's what we call this, right?
That's what we're referring to it
Okay.
in terms of this tonight,
All right,
yes.
good. No, yeah, good. Not creative, right? I mean, if you can create a different business.
This is a thing, this is a thing.
I'm a fan.
Yep.
But this sniff spot, so this is a commercial enterprise, correct? They collect money for this business from people that are not friends or family, and they collect money for a free or service. Is that correct?
The same as the exception to the lodging issue where there's allowed to be 4 overnight guests that are paying guests. We think it falls into that same policy exception because it's not on even that big of a scale, and when no one has attacked anybody else's business. In fact, we've said nothing but good things about other people tonight, that there's another business that's doing the exact same thing on a much grander scale a half a mile away within the same district. So with respect to Mr. Allard and his typo, this is the first that we've heard about a typo since this was issued on July 20th, which was almost a month ago. So it's a convenient argument, and we respect the town, but we also feel that attempting to stretch one thing into another isn't appropriate either.
So pose my question in such a way that I was hoping to get a yes or no answer, but you have illustrated one of my most strong affections for an attorney in not giving me a yes or no answer. So I'll just repeat it for clarity. In this arrangement, do they receive money
Yes,
for this service?
absolutely, just like the Airbnb exception. It's the
Okay.
exact same thing on a smaller
Thank you.
scale, and the same as the kennel would on a much grander scale.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome. Mr. Cussy?
Yeah, I don't have anything on it, really. I just, if you can collect money on an Airbnb, why can't you collect money on a dog kennel?
Mr. Chairman, if he's
That's
posing
what I
that question to me, I'd be happy to answer that when we actually close the public
Okay.
public portion of the hearing.
All right.
I think we're going a little bit outside our scope, but if they did want to operate as an Airbnb, they'd still need a special permit, I think. So that would be a different hearing. For this purpose, the notice that they get does, I know it was a typo, but it does say 3.2.5.0. So I still think we're stuck to that particular section tonight, in my opinion.
100%.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I'm actually not 100% sure where this fits in the bylaws, regardless of my feeling on sniff spots or whatever, but with respect to the notice that went out, I think it was faulty.
The only thing you could do is continue if they wanted to continue.
That is certainly a possibility that we could discuss after we close the public portion of the
Yep.
hearing. Sure. Ms. Roach?
I don't think we can close the public portion of the hearing before we discuss continue, because why would they continue?
Right.
They were given notice of 3250. Is it legit or not? That's the question.
That's it.
I'll make a motion. If we can close the public hearing.
I'll second.
We got 5 people.
Okay, so do we have, just for officially, do we have a motion to close the public portion of the hearing?
Mr. Chairman, motion to
Motion to
close the
close.
public portion of the hearing.
Do I have a second?
Second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, public portion of the hearing is closed. Ms. Roach, your thoughts?
I'll make a motion.
Go ahead.
Where's our little thing here? So, again, right now, as of now, I will make a motion to grant the administrative appeal under section 3.2.5 of the Auburn zoning bylaw to appeal the cease and desist order as written. I do not believe this applies to section 3.2.5.0. End of the motion.
Okay. And we have a second from Ms. Bush. So we'll do a roll call vote for this, just in case. Vice Chair Maron?
I'm going to deny, but I'm not going to do it without discussion. So I don't think that we want to go down the road of overturning a cease and desist when this has been thoroughly thought out and vetted through the building commissioner as well as the associate town manager. In addition to that, this is clearly a business that's operating for commerce. So I fail to understand why this wouldn't apply as a business and why we would repeal.
But it's not a retail store or sales. No one's saying the town can't refile. Tonight, it's 3250, and that's the wrong category. Respect to the town, mistakes happen. Tonight, our job is to look at what they were given. It's 3250, which says retail stores and sales. They're saying for the first time tonight they heard about a typo. Well, okay, then we need to, if they want to reapply, sure, do it. But tonight, how can we say that there is anything other than 3.2.50 that was in the notice?
So that you're following that down on
But again, you
technicality.
certainly have the right to deny. I'm just saying, that's my, you know?
So you're saying that it's not because categorically it's in the wrong box?
Basically, that's it, right?
Yes, I'm not denying the town has an argument about something that is not on the agenda for tonight. If it's on the agenda another night, we'll get to it. But tonight, what's on the agenda is the notice, cease and desist from the town. They want to appeal it. Tonight, I think they win.
It doesn't necessarily mean it's the last step. We'll
Yeah, no,
probably
no,
likely see
yeah.
sure it's
No,
not.
I agree. I'm not going to challenge it. I'm going to recoil my vote because I think from a technicality standpoint, we should walk that line. And so I will retract my vote of deny and approve the appeal based on that typo basis.
Thank you. Approve. Ms. Bush? And I vote to approve. So, as it stands right now, again, I think Ms. Roach did a fantastic job of explaining everything and why we have to deny, because based on, it's a typographical error, a misinterpretation, whatever it might be, but for now, as it stands, to do the right thing and protect the town from liability, I believe that we have to stand on what we just agreed upon. So you win your appeal for now until the town decides to take further action, and then we could possibly see you in another future meeting. I really don't know. But I think the best I can tell you is stay tuned. So do I have a motion to close the 6:05 PM hearing?
Mr. Chairman, motion to close?
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, seeing none, that is complete. Okay. If you want to, whoever would like to head out, we'll give you a couple of minutes, and then we're going to move on to the 6:10. So can I make a motion for a 5-minute recess?
Mr. Chairman, motion to make a 5-minute recess.
Do I
If
have a
we
second?
change this, dogs,
Aye.
Okay, so we're on a 5-minute recess, folks?
we could ask town council.
It is now
And I've already got a
18:46. We will reconvene at 18:51. So we are now on to the 610 applicant, Branded Realty Group 2 LLC, requesting a special permit under section 4.3.7.1 of the Auburn zoning bylaw to construct a Dunkin' at 481 Washington Street, map 57, parcel 163, in the Aquifer Watershed Protection District, Zone 2. Presently on these premises is a disused gas station and convenience store. It also has a active used car lot on it right now. The subject property is located in the General Industrial Zoning District. And before we begin and turn it over to the applicant, I'd like to point out that we received an email from a one Laurie Lancio for 481 Washington Street. It says, as owner of 486 to 488 Washington Street, I have one major concern regarding the construction of 481 Washington Street, which would include the food service and drive-through. If this project is approved, I encourage you to pursue having a traffic light installed in the intersection of Route 20, School Street, and Elm Street. There are multiple accidents of this intersection on a weekly basis, primarily due to the speed and the number of curb cuts. Adding additional traffic would only make it worse. It is my opinion that a traffic light installed will certainly reduce the traffic hazards from South Street to Millbury Street as well. Thank you for your consideration. Laurie Lancio, Pleasant Mobile Home Park, 486 to 488 Washington Street, Auburn. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to the applicant. Oh, sorry, do I have a motion to open the hearing? Make sure.
Mr. Chairman, motion open?
Do I have a second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to the applicant. If you want to give us your presentation, please.
Good evening. Thank you. My name is Robert Branca. I'm manager of Branded Realty Group 2. We are seeking two special permits, one to allow, as you mentioned, a food service establishment with a drive-through, and a special permit to allow greater than 15% impervious surface in the Aquifer Protection District. We're also seeking a variance for relief from the minimum landscape buffer for a business, and that's due to the unique shape of the site. It's sort of like a pike, and in the back has a swampy wetland. And the other thing I'd like to point out is they're also using that small building on the site as a convenience store. They have advertisements for vapes and energy drinks on it that they sell there. I'd like to point out that this is not a self-created problem for the variance. There's a practical difficulty due to the shape of the lot, the road layout, and the town and state easements on the site. There's a very wide state roadway easement. The site is contaminated. There's a DEP file on it. We've been before conservation. What we think are the greatest benefits to the town is that the people we're buying it from, it's essentially a publicly traded REIT, Getty Realty. The seller is a subsidiary of that, as I understand it. They will, if we are granted permits, they will remediate the site. They will take out those old leaky gas tanks, all the old pipes, all the underground stuff. And again, it's an aquifer protection zone, so we think that's a paramount importance to everybody and a huge benefit to the area. They haven't done that because they hadn't had a buyer. This is their opportunity to do it. We've had experience doing this before. Locally, we did it with a gas station Dunkin' drive-through that we own in Kelly Square in Worcester, across the street from the ballpark. It's also got a Jersey Mike's there and a car wash. We've done it several times in Ohio with Marathon Petroleum, and it has resulted in a clean site. They generally end up being deed restricted, so that you can't use them for residential, recreational activities, schools, daycare centers, that kind of thing. And while we would be creating more impervious surfaces, we will be adding, as our civil engineer will present, a state-of-the-art drainage and retention system. And there's nothing there now. All the runoff from Route 20 and on the site goes right into the aquifer. So we think that is a distinct advantage. And I know you had an email already that you read that referred to traffic. We believe the traffic's already there. That's why we want to be there. We don't believe it will generate more traffic, and we have our traffic engineer will present that evidence of the accidents that have occurred there and their severity. And one thing I would like to note, because it came up at the planning board, is that they did counts in January, but there's a professional engineer factor that flattens it out so that it predicts what the traffic is throughout the year. And we wanted to do it at a time when school was in session, because obviously there's more traffic then, and the kids walking, getting on and off buses, which I know is going to be your concern, as it would be mine. I'm a parent. So with that, I will leave it to my civil engineer.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the board. My name is Alex Wood. I am an EIT civil engineer with Thompson Liston Associates. Just to elaborate a little bit more on the proposal here, currently showing on the screen, we have the existing conditions plan. So the site is located, as you can see, at the intersection of Washington Street, or State Route 20, and Elm Street. And the lot area is approximately 1.54 acres. And as Mr. Branca pointed out, it is situated within the general industry, as well as the Aquifer and Watershed Protection Overlay District. Given the fact that it is situated in the Aquifer and Watershed Protection Overlay District, and therefore a Zone 2 the applicant has ensured through the design that we are taking the appropriate measures for construction period erosion controls as presented on sheet C1.2 of the set, as well as permanent measures which can be found on sheet C3 showing the grading and drainage improvements, as well as on the landscape sheet on C5.1. So given that the existing runoff is untreated and runs to two design points, one being the street itself for Route 20, and the other being the wetland on the opposing side. Our proposal involves capturing that runoff through a treatment train, which consists of water quality units, as well as deep sump and hooded catch basins and stormwater infiltration measures. This is consistent with the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection stormwater standards and the local stormwater bylaw for the town of Auburn. And so we are meeting the requirements as presented in those documents, and also we have worked with the landscape architect to increase the trees along the frontage, especially considering that there are some trees which will be cut in the proposed condition due to the fact that we are expanding the limit of work in the direction of the wetland resource area. But given the proposal, we have also applied for site plan review from the planning board, as well as to the Conservation Commission. We have received a DEP file number as well, so we are working with the commission regarding that. But as Mr. Branca pointed out, we are here in front of the Zoning Board of Appeals to discuss these two special permits and the variance for the associated use. And with that, I would like to turn it over to Lisa to discuss the specifics of the traffic. Thank you.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Lisa Wan with Kimley Horn, and I worked on the traffic study for the 481 Washington Street. Today, we're going to walk through the study area, how we conducted the process for the traffic analysis, the existing conditions of the intersection, the corridor, the proposed project characteristics as it relates to traffic, drive-through, and parking, and then ultimately the conclusions and the proposed mitigation. The purpose of the traffic study is to really understand what's the current transportation system, estimating that project-related traffic demands, how much traffic is the site generating, assess impact on the streets and intersections, and then ultimately really identifying potential mitigation. So for the study process, we conducted our turning movement counts and hourly flows during a weekday in January 2026. As Rob alluded to, for the traffic counts, we accounted for seasonal adjustment, so it's really important that when we're doing our counts, we adjust it to make sure that it's in line based on Mass DOT, and this was done when school was in session. We also obtained the most recent 5 years of crash data through Mass DOT's crash portal, so from 2021 to 2025, forecast of our traffic demands plus 7 years as we do our traffic study. I'll talk about the traffic flow, drive-through analysis, the parking demand for this site, and determine the needs and potential mitigation. On the site, you see that there are ultimately 4 study intersections. The first study intersection is that Washington Street at Elm Street/School Street, which is a two-way stop controlled. And then the intersection at 2, it's Elm Street at the site driveway. That is unsignalized, and it's also a full access, indicating that you can turn a left in, a right in, and then when you're leaving the site, you can also do a left and a right. At intersection 3, which is along Washington Street, that is also unsignalized, but it's a right in only. At intersection 4, that is also unsignalized, and it's a right out only. Do note that Washington Street and a section of Elm Street, that is under Mass DOT jurisdiction. So that intersection is also under Mass DOT's jurisdiction as well. So let's talk about the corridor itself. Washington Street, Route 20, 2-lane undivided roadway, 40 miles per hour speed limit. When we conducted our counts, the speed limit as well, 85th percentile, it's coming up higher than the posted speed limit. It's a principal arterial roadway, carries a lot of traffic, and it is under Mass DOT jurisdiction. When we first were beginning the traffic study, as we ran into the analysis, we coordinated with district to really understand, are there any improvements that they're looking at this intersection? And when we coordinated with them a couple of months ago, nothing was on their radar. Additionally, we also did a signal warrant analysis for the existing conditions for 2026 and even 2035 following the manual uniform traffic control devices. This intersection doesn't meet the warrants. So we did do some analysis to just determine, does the signal work? Is DOT doing anything at this moment? So along the corridor, I mentioned that we conducted counts in January along Washington Street. As you can see here, fluctuation of volume really, it really dips down throughout the day, but then at 3 to 4, that's when the peak occurs, and then it slowly dips down once again. Along the corridor, it's about 21,000 vehicles per day, and looking at the AM and PM, the AM peak hour was about 7:15 to 8:15, and the PM, it's about 4 to 5. So we looked at the most recent data of crash data. So at the intersection of Washington Street at Elm Street, there were 37 reported crashes. 51% of that were angled crashes. There were no fatalities at that intersection. However, there was a serious injury crash. It was an angled crash. As I mentioned, 51% were angled crashes. Other crash type were rear end crashes, and side swept crashes were the other ones. Additionally, at the study intersections, there were no top crash clusters present with our study area, and that's using Mass DOT's crash portal, really understanding, is this area a hot spot or on their radar? And it's not. These are some of the photos at the intersection, because this is the main intersection to get to our site, depending on where you're coming to and from. Two-way stop controlled intersection. You're stopped at Elm Street and School Street, and you have that blinking light for when you're on the stop controlled, it's red, and then the other one, it's more yellow/orange. For the intersection, for the project itself, it is a proposed drive-through Dunkin' facility and a commercial space in one commercial building. As other people mentioned, that it used to be a convenience store and a used car sales lot, and then previously it was a gas station. Ultimately, for the drive-through, it's a 2,400 square feet. The commercial space is 4,000 square feet. There are 3 site access points along this corridor, and again, these access points, it is under DOT's jurisdiction, even along Elm Street. This is the site plan. Alex shared that as well, but just sharing it again. Along Elm Street, you can see that it's the full access. Along Washington Street, the first driveway, that is a right in. And then the second access point or driveway along Washington Street, that's a right out. So I went over the project itself. I went over what the project type is, when we collected traffic counts. Now we need to figure out how are cars getting to and from the site. So we identify the overall estimated trip distribution. This is based on existing traffic patterns. So when we are looking at the existing traffic patterns, coming to and from the north along School Street, that's about 1% to our site, or along Elm Street is coming to and from the south, that's about 5% to the site, and then along Washington Street, it's about an even split, about 47%. So this is important when we're figuring out how are folks getting to and from our site. The net new vehicle trips, basically how much additional traffic is this site generating. So there's two different land use codes. One is the coffee donut shop with the drive-through, and the second one is the strip retail, that commercial space of that 4,000 square feet. When we're looking at the different land use codes, and this is based on ITE, the Institute of Transportation Engineers, the 12th edition, you also have to account for pass-by. Pass-by trips are only applied for the coffee and donut shop, and what that is that people are already on the road. They see a type of facility, a Dunkin' facility. They're going to stop by and continue on their destination. So they're a pass-by trip. Their intention was never the Dunkin'. Their intention was somewhere else, but saw it and just pulled over. So we accounted the pass-by trip only for the Dunkin', not for the commercial. Ultimately, when we're looking at the AM peak hour, there is a net increase of about 51 trips, meaning that there's 27 cars entering, 24 cars leaving. During the weekday PM peak period, that's about 43 total trips. 22 cars are entering, and then 21 cars are leaving. So to give you that information. We looked at the capacity analysis of how is the traffic operating now. As Rob alluded to, when we're looking at Washington Street, at Elm/School Street, when we looked at the existing conditions, 2026, and when we looked at the future conditions without our project, so it's 2033 no build, the intersection operates poorly, hence why we coordinated with DOT. Something is happening right now. It exists. We wanted to coordinate with them. Is there something on the horizon? So then ultimately, when you add on our project trips, less than 50 trips for the different peak hours, the operations does deteriorate slightly, especially because it's already operating poorly. Things that are really bad, it's that southbound approach along School Street exiting and the northbound movements, especially when turning left. Again, just want to be really clear that in the existing no-build conditions, it operates really poorly, and especially because Washington Street has such a high amount of volume that the side street, you're going to experience some delays. So the next thing is going through the drive-through lane capacity. Just really understand how many cars can really stacked onto the site. So when you're looking at the site, there's a variety of different colors, but closest to exiting along Washington Street, that right out access, you see this maroon or purple colors. That's about 12 vehicles that can stack within the drive-through mark lanes. And then ultimately, when we're looking at, from this color and the red color, that's about 12 vehicles that can be stacked within the drive-through mark lanes. The additional 8 vehicles, that's the orange colors over here. So that's about 20 vehicles that can be stacked along the corridor or along the circulation. And then in the yellow, that's about additional 3 to 4 vehicles that can be that could be stacked until spillback onto Washington Street. Ultimately, this site provides more than adequate storage. It stacks 12, 8, and then ultimately can go up to 23 before spilling back to Washington Street. We don't anticipate cars are spilling all the way to Washington Street, especially with the service time as well. This is just the worst case scenario and really understanding how many cars can be fit within this drive-through lane. Another component for our analysis is the parking demand, really understanding how much parking is being provided and does it actually meet the demand. Very similar when we are forecasting traffic, we use the same methodology for parking. We're using the same land use code. It's going to be the strip retail and the coffee and donut shop drive-through analysis. For this analysis, we did a weekday component and also a Saturday. This is an hourly distribution because when you're looking at the different land use codes, it's going to have different peaks throughout the day. Ultimately, when we're looking at the weekday at 12 and 1 p.m., that's the peak, and that's about 19 cars are parked there, and that indicates that there's 13 additional spots because this site has 32 parking spaces. And then Saturday as well, the peak occurs at 10 a.m., and that's about 26 parking spaces being occupied, indicating that there's 6 parking spots being available. So the peak parking demand never reaches the parking required or parking number that's being provided as well. So it's under that threshold. In conclusions, just letting everybody know that during the AM peak hour, it's a net new trips of 51 trips. During the weekday peak period, it's about 43. We also took a look at the stopping site distance along the site driveways for Elm and Washington Street, and we exceed the minimum required, really understanding that we want to make sure that people can see cars pulling out and so forth. Site distance is really important. The site provides more than adequate storage for the drive-through. Vehicles approaching Elm and School Street are going to experience those delays. Washington Street is a heavily traveled roadway. The proposed parking number is well below than the number of spaces being provided. The last slide here just shows the ultimate site plan. Once again, when we coordinated with DOT, even in the signage area, it is within DOT's jurisdiction, so really just making sure that we have those stop controlled at the intersections where you're leaving the site, or just making sure that there's do not enter signage, especially along Washington Street at some of the locations, because you cannot turn a left in. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, are there any abutters here this evening that want to speak on this matter? If you could approach the lectern, please, give us your name and address.
I am Lisa Onderdonk, 3 Brook Street, Auburn. And I'm not sure if I'm considered an abutter, but I do go down Elm Street to Route 20 every single day when I leave my house. And I'm not against Dunkin' Donuts, love the franchise, but I just want to echo the concerns of the woman that sent the email regarding the safety concerns, and if this proposal were to be passed, I would also love to see a traffic light there, because even though there were no fatalities at that, excuse me, at that particular intersection, just a few feet down from that intersection, there have been several fatalities that I know of, at least. So a friend of my daughter's had a grandfather that was killed right down there. So as it stands, there's the blinking yellow and red lights at that intersection, and I think those are useless. And if you have the added traffic with Dunkin' Donuts there, I think there's serious need for a traffic light. And that's it.
I appreciate that. So one of the things, just so you understand, is because it's a numbered road, Route 20, like Route 12, 290, right, the rest. They have very strict state regulations on that. We could suggest or have a letter written of concern, but we really don't have any authority to insert a light there. But I do also recall, and for the record, that's where Mr. Robidoux was killed, just about 100 yards up the street from there. So I do recall that, and he was a great town resident, and I miss him, actually. But again, unfortunately, I see Ms. Lancio's letter and your concern, but there's very little this board can do about that. So, but I appreciate your concern. Oh, yeah. Any other rebutters that would like to comment on this? Okay, and I also have to talk about one thing that I recognized another administrative error, and I'll allow the town side to comment on this. But if you notice that the applicant has requested 2 special permits and a variance, and it's only listed as 1 special permit under 4.3.7.1 in the advertisement.
The notice that went out had all 3, the one that I got.
Yeah, I think he's referring to the agenda.
Maybe I got a late one, maybe I got a one that was,
It's not on my agenda.
it's not on Ms. Roach's agenda as well. Not on yours either?
Yeah, it doesn't appear to be on any of ours on the agenda, Mr.
So I'll just
Chairman.
read it again for the record. It says 610 applicant, Branded Realty LLC, 2, requesting a special permit under section 4.3.7.1 of the Auburn zoning bylaw to construct a Dunkin' at 481 Washington Street, map 57, 153, in the Aquifer Watershed Protection District Zone 2. Presently on the premises is a disused gas station and convenience store. The subject property is located in the General Industrial Zone District. So in order to correctly vote on this, we would have to have it actually state, and again, I'll let the town comment on it, and maybe I'm wrong, but it should list the 2 special permits and the variance in the advertising, or it can be contested. Yes, sir?
Good evening, Mr. Chair. Paul Delaquila, Assistant Town Manager and Director of Economic Development. As Mr. Branca noted, the notice was sent properly. It appears that the agenda did not include all 3 of the requested measures. I'm not predicting what the board's going to do, but I would anticipate perhaps a continuance tonight anyway.
I think that's where I was leaning towards it.
And so my advice to the board would be, technically, since the only thing advertised on this agenda was for the impervious surface, or in the Aquifer District, I would just advise the board at the next meeting, we'll make sure everything is listed properly on the agenda, but you'll have to open those hearings that were not listed on the agenda tonight, if that makes sense, what I'm trying to say.
It does. So I think if I could summarize correctly, and if I'm not doing so, please let me know, is vote on the one particular special permit that's available to us this evening and then continue it, or you want to continue the whole thing?
Well, if the board feels prepared to vote on the one that was on the agenda tonight, I think that's within the purview. However, it was advertised, all of them were advertised tonight, and I think perhaps in the interest of making it all neat and tidy, I would encourage the board perhaps to vote them all at the same time.
Understood. Thank you for that clarification. Okay. So with that being said, just to make sure, we have any other abutters that want to speak on this matter? Okay, hearing none, seeing none. I'll turn it over to the other board members. I think that's our best approach would be to, they've completed their presentation. Do we need to have the plans peer reviewed?
I would request it, Mr. Chairman, but I think for this evening, I think we asked the applicant if they would entertain essentially continuing it so that we can straighten out the agenda and make sure that all 3 are on the agenda.
We actually have paid for a peer review already.
Okay.
That's in process.
It is? Oh, good, okay. So I think the best process moving forward here, if you want to comment, Ms. Roach, go ahead.
Actually, they did complete it. My engineer just said Graves just sent them comments.
Yeah, it was today, yep.
So we'll respond to those. And we'd love to get as many votes as we could sooner rather than later.
Sure.
One thing I'd like the board to know is that we have a 90-day window to get permits for Getty to be able to come in and clean up the site.
Understood.
Otherwise, they won't do it. So.
Okay. And again, it's because we've had issues in the past where if it wasn't advertised properly, we had one particular permit that's holding up a business right now. It's in court because it wasn't advertised properly, and they had a competitor across the street filed a lawsuit against it.
Process is important, yes.
So I would not want to jeopardize your project because we made a mistake on our end.
Right.
I would rather have it come back in the September. We could put it for the first agenda on the item, and we could vote on it that evening. And then your peer review could be complete by then. We could probably wrap it all up in September is what I'm thinking.
If you are prepared to vote on the one item that was advertised, we would like that to happen.
Understood?
And the notice that we got, like the public notice, had all three. So anybody that was entitled to notice got notice.
And I think just
I
erring on the
understand
side
your
of
point.
caution.
I
And
understand.
again, I would hate to have somebody file a complaint or a lawsuit and then vacate your project and then put you completely outside of that 90-day window. I'd just not want to, I would hate to jeopardize that for you. And quite honestly, I know that people may feel otherwise about the project, but I'm only speaking for myself. I find this really, I think this is a positive project for the town, just for the simple fact of cleaning up a brownfield. I mean, that's been down there for years. We've given permits to that location 3 or 4 times in an effort to keep it open. And ideally, it would be really nice to get that area cleaned up. So I'm not speaking for the entire board, but just for myself, I'd love to see that happen. So, do we want to have any other comments? Do you want to?
I don't have any comments, Mr. Chairman, but did Ms. Roach have a couple of questions that she wanted to address tonight?
I mean, I guess a couple things. First, I just wanted to say, in 8 years on the board, that is by far the best traffic presentation we have ever been given.
I would agree
And
with
I mean that wholeheartedly. That's the best traffic presentation that we have heard in my almost 10 years on the board. So,
We have an excellent traffic engineer.
thank you. You did excellent.
Very thorough.
And I guess, I know advice of assistant town manager was maybe to continue everything. Would be prepared to vote on what was already done correctly. If it sounds like the applicant is not opposed to that, I'm just putting that out there for myself. But obviously, we can't vote on the other items on the
Right.
agenda,
The other
of
special
course.
permit and variance, I think, would be in jeopardy.
And I do just have a question for the applicant. Do you have any, so the Dunkin' Donuts, according to the, C5.1 plan, the Dunkin' Donuts looks like it's going to occupy 2,400 square feet.
That is correct.
The other 4,000 square feet, do you have any potential tenants for that? And is that something you're willing to comment on? That's a question that I
can,
personally
yes.
have. Sure.
It's retail. We would look for something that's different peak periods to the Dunkin', which we've done on many of our
Not
other sites.
Starbucks.
Right. I have talked to a convenience store operator. Again, it's a convenience store there now. This would be a much more modern one. They operate several in Worcester County. We've partnered with them on other sites. The most recent one is 590 Southbridge Street in Worcester. Nothing is signed, it's just they're friends, and we've done deals together before. And that looks promising. We have not spoken to anybody else.
Okay.
We wanted, obviously, to satisfy the town's requirements, so then we could go solicit tenants.
I think that's a consideration, which, when we talk about parking, although that's not on for tonight, but I do think that's a consideration as to how many spots you need.
Came up a lot in the planning
Frankly.
board for site plan review.
It did, okay. And you've been to planning board already and
Yes,
are all set with planning board?
Because they
or it's
wanted to wait for the
continued?
peer review to come in.
Okay, and that's back, and comments from Graves have been received, just not responded to yet?
I haven't seen it yet.
Okay. Okay. I think we wait for Graves.
So, do I have a motion to close the public portion of the hearing?
Before we do, Mr. Chairman, would you entertain just one follow-up question? And they may not be prepared to discuss this tonight, so we can kick this forward to the next hearing, but the increase on impervious surface, do you have numbers around that of what the actual
Yes.
total increase would be on percentage?
Through the chair, yes, we do. So the existing paved surfaces and concrete is approximately 18,000 square feet. And as for the proposed, we estimate it'll be approximately 35,000 square feet. Of course, subject to change from planning board items if there are any comments from them or from the peer review, but we estimate it'll be within that threshold. And the proposed services are routed to the subsurface infiltration and water quality unit measures, so we are effectively mitigating the stormwater runoff associated with those services and with the building roof as well.
Understood. I mean, I would fully expect that the recharge system, I mean, it would be a significant improvement, so I get that. But you're talking about going from 18 to 35 in estimate?
Yes, approximately, yep, correct.
All right, just so I can have numbers in my head. I'll work out the percentages later. I won't ask you for the math. But I'll park it for next time. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I'm not opposed to, I mean, I would agree with Ms. Roach. I'm not opposed to voting on the one tonight, but at the same time, I would defer to taking it as a package. The assistant town manager had spoken on it, and so I would defer to his opinion in taking it as a package.
I think that would be the best.
And I think I'll retract because I guess I missed the part about Graves, so I think I would want to hear back from what the Graves comments are on the site plan before I would vote if we were forced, but I think we probably should wait until we hear back from peer review, and do them all together at the next meeting.
I would agree with that, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. So I think formally, I think the best way we've done this in the past is to have you request the continuation to the board. We'll accept it, and then we can put it on for the first agenda for the September, it would be 9/17. Just given the fact that we have to re-advertise it and make sure it's safe. So.
No, I get that with the other two. The drive-through permit's very important, and if we were to receive it, I can go back to Getty Realty and say, hey, look, the town has given us one of the most significant ones. So if we need more time, that's a good argument for me to get more time.
I mean, I'm not really opposed to it. I think it would be an act of good faith for the board.
Sorry, I just want to look at one
Yep,
thing.
that's okay.
437.
I trust your judgment.
437.
So are we suggesting, Mr. Chairman, that if we were not to take a vote tonight, that there would be something that times out for your permitting process?
Well, it cuts 30 days
Well,
into
I
their
don't know
time.
what's going to happen, so that's, like, I'm trying to get as much certainty as I can into the process, so that when I speak to them, we have to demonstrate that we used best efforts, that we attended all the hearings, we hired good experts, all of that.
Understood.
And if I can go back and show, hey, look, we've got a critical permit, I mean, this is your discretion, the other two are relatively minor compared to the one that you could vote on tonight. I think we can all agree on that. That's a good, strong argument for us.
No, it's a fair argument. I agree.
And then there's an appeal period after you act, so we have to wait through that.
But I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think that the only one that was correctly on for tonight is the aquifer and watershed. The one for the drive-through is not on, so we can't vote on that. I mean, again, your notice is different than ours, but for us, the one for tonight is the 4.371, which deals with aquifer and watershed protection.
Right.
So that's really the only one we could have voted on for tonight.
Okay, and obviously we presented evidence of the stormwater, you have the plans. As you noted, it's a significant improvement of the current conditions, and given that it's in that Zone 2 area, it's a priority for the town and the state.
And again, I do apologize. This is something that we didn't catch until the last minute, and I'd like to just make sure, again, it's done correctly for you.
Thank you.
So do we have an agreement? Would you like to submit a request for a continuance to the next meeting? Okay. So we have a request for a continuance for the next meeting. Do I have a motion to accept?
Mr. Chairman, I would request that we accept a motion to accept.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, seeing none. So just for the record, we'd like to be able to make sure that this gets re-advertised correctly and that it is put on the agenda for the first item in the next meeting.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And this, by the way, this remains open, so if anybody has any public comments or any concerns, if it's a continuation, this is not a closing out, just for the record. And we do apologize. Sorry about that. I mean, on the good note, your presentation is complete, so we should probably be able to do a relatively quick review on the other elements that you have, and it should, I think should probably go pretty smoothly. I can't speak for the members of the board, but I would imagine it should go pretty well.
Thank you very much. Appreciate
Thank
your
you.
time. Have a good evening.
Okay, we have a 615 applicant, Yabudi Mohammed Napone, requesting a special permit under section 3.2.6.1.2 of the Auburn zoning bylaw to have a seasonal auto repair shop at 41 Elm Street, map 58, parcel 50. Presently, the parcel is a residential and tool storage. The subject property is located in the general industrial zoning district. Do I have a motion to open the hearing?
Mr. Chairman, motion to open the hearing?
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, seeing none. Is the applicant present?
Same here.
Okay. Is the applicant present? One more time, just making sure.
That's weird.
Okay, one final time. Third, is the applicant present? Hearing none, seeing none?
So I think in the past, we have, as a board, we have continued the meeting for one meeting in order to give the applicant the benefit of the doubt.
Right.
So I'm certainly willing to make a motion to continue the hearing for the 615 application under 3.2.6.1.2 of Auburn zoning bylaws to the next meeting in hopes they contact the town. There may be some unforeseen circumstance. So I'll make a motion to continue that hearing to the next meeting.
Do I have a second?
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry.
Did you want to speak on this matter? Yeah. Oh, let me do that. Is there any abutters here that want to comment on this?
Yeah, sorry about that.
We can accept butters' comments. Go ahead. That'll save you from coming back for the next time.
Sorry.
My name is Tim Onderdonk. I live at 3 Brook Street, butter right next door to them on the corner of Elm and Brook Street. First of all, I noticed that the notice that was sent to us says that it's in the aquifer protection zone, similar to the Duncan project. That doesn't seem to be listed on the agenda, but that was one of my concerns, that being in this zone, that they would be required to provide some sort of fluid containment for the gas and fluids from the cars, like a floor drain to an oil water separator, tight tank, or something to protect the aquifer and the surrounding environment. The second concern I have, which I emailed these beforehand, is some sort of a visual screen that would be required to shield the cars that will be stored on the property and the operations, as well as sound protection, which I think is listed in the special permit conditions. They would need to provide soundproofing for the garage. And also the property, the garage 2A on their application is just about right at the property line, and it's heavily wooded, so I was concerned about what kind of fire protection they would be required to provide, being so close to the heavily wooded area and the neighbors. And the last concern is if the special permit would allow vehicle sales, which I didn't see that in the notice, but.
Okay. Well, what I can do is just ask the town to make sure, for the next, since it will be continued, to make sure that it's not in the aquifer protection zone. I know it's general industrial, but we'll just double check that for the applicant, or for the concerned abutter, I should say. And we can duly note your concerns as far as noise, fire protection. And I agree, one of the things, I look at my members of the board here, and I recognize they're all highly qualified in the particular areas of expertise. Mine happens to be the automotive industry. So when these things come up, that's where I usually jump in and have my concerns about, waste oil management, how much, liquids or what they're going to have. They're going to be recharging air conditioning units, all kinds of different things like that. In particular, how they're going to do spill management.
Yes.
So that's something that I've taken pretty serious, especially, I know that you have the Sportsman's Club not too far down the street with the water there, and we have the aquifer protection zone up on Route 20. So I can definitely mirror your concerns with that.
Thank you.
So, absolutely. Anyone else? Okay, hearing none, seeing none. So again, we have a request for a continuance for the 615 applicant on section 32612. Ms. Roach has already submitted. Do I have a second?
So I'll second, Mr. Chairman, a one-time continuance with an explanation of why he wasn't able to show this evening.
Okay. So I have excuse me, I have a motion and a second. Do I have a vote on that matter? All in favor?
All approved, yeah.
Aye.
All in favor? Aye? No, okay. So we're going to continue the 6:15, and that will stay open again also for public comment. So if anybody has any questions or concerns, you can also address that with the town hall. So we're on to the 6:20 applicant, Tracy McDonald, requesting a variance for accessory use under section 3912 and 3914 of the Auburn zoning bylaw for a special permit for home occupation under 3192 and 3194 of the Auburn zoning bylaw for 25 Inwood Road, map 31, parcel 40. The subject property is located in a residential aquifer zoning district, RA. Not aquifer, I apologize, it's RA zoning district. Okay. And we have people that, are you recused?
Yes,
Okay.
I am in a butter, so I need to recuse myself.
Okay, so Ms. Roach is going to vacate for the, this is our last hearing. Ms. Roach is going to vacate for the rest of the meeting, and I believe Mr. Adamiak, you also do the same?
Yeah,
So do you plan on staying for the rest of the meeting, or you can also vacate if you'd like?
I'll stay.
Okay. So I also bring up Mr. Shea as a full voting member to replace Ms. Roach. So you'll be active in this one, sir? So do I have a motion to open the 6:20?
Mr. Chairman, motion to open.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, seeing none. Mr. Shivik, to you, sir, again.
Good evening, Mr. Tatro, Mr. Chairman, fellow
evening.
board members and town employees. Thank you for having us on this application here for a variance on the town zoning bylaw. My client is in a Residence A situation, and there has been a few meetings on this topic over the course of the last 6 to 8 months. We'd ask the board to keep an open mind and hear us through on our application.
Okay. So I'm assuming our abutters present, the rest of the audience must be here for this particular hearing. Do we want to start with the abutters? Are you ready to do your presentation, or you are all set?
Before we do, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
If I may?
You may.
Just a point of clarification, and the applicant may well know, but I also want to point to our building commissioner. So I'm assuming that we're going to hear of substantive changes from the original application for this activity?
This is,
I mean, I'll just plain speak. Why is this application different than the last time this applicant was before us?
well, regardless of why it's different, we have the right to present it, and that's what we intend to do tonight.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Regardless of whether it's different, we intend to have this application heard tonight, as is due process would allow. To your point, there's...
I'm not opposed to hearing it. I'd just like to know why it's different.
Thank you. I mean, there's just some substantial changes in the process that my client engages in to try to mitigate traffic, noise, dog waste, property values, and any of the other issues that were raised by abutters at the last hearings.
I'm sorry to make you bobble.
It's okay. It's
on
not
the other side of
No,
Mr.
I'm trying to do
Allard.
my
I'm
best.
doing the same.
I appreciate your
Thank
empathy.
you. Yeah, no, I have every intention of giving you an opportunity to present, why it was different, but that does spark my curiosity on what would be different from the first application. I noticed that there's a variance on this application, which wasn't present last time, correct?
I was chairman of multiple boards, the Personnel Board in the town of Leicester, the Moose Hill Water Commission, and a member of the Select Board, so I understand how difficult these hearings can be, and I appreciate your position on that question. So we are prepared to illustrate the benefits to my client and to the neighborhood of her application and the request for the variance. We brought it as a special permit initially and a variance, but we whittled it down to just the variance request, so that would be the only difference from what we actually submitted.
Okay, so it's not a special permit and a variance, it's just a variance this evening?
I think that's how it was advertised. That's
Okay.
where we decided to proceed. We spoke to the assistant town manager about this at length, and we had that discussion, and that's the way we chose to proceed.
All right, very good.
It's kind of like a middle ground there between the home occupation and the dog issue, 3.912 and 914. So it's just trying to fit it in there and ask for permission through the town.
Understood. I will give you latitude, but I can profess I don't like middle ground. But
I appreciate that.
But I will certainly keep an open mind this evening.
And Mr. Tatro, to your point, we would have the abutters speak first, if it pleases the chair.
And I just want to point out as well, we have several emails that we received in favor of this, and we have a couple also that are not in favor, just for the record. So if any of the abutters would like to speak, we could have you come up one at a time. If you haven't signed in already, if you could do so, please, and then we can take your comments. If the comments are repetitive, we ask that you kind of accept the fact that you've already been submitted. Yes, sir.
I wanted to speak, but I was really interested in what they proposed to change for this.
Okay, and we can have you speak, you can speak after as well. We won't restrict you. Go ahead, sir.
Good evening. My name is Tom Oakes. My wife and I live at 19 Inwood Road, 3 houses down from Tracy McDonald. In January 2025, we adopted Nova, a rescue dog from Tennessee. Knowing Tracy and recognizing her genuine love of dogs made us feel very comfortable having Nova spend time with her, socializing with Tracy's dogs and other dogs in her care. We will always be grateful for the support and guidance that you get. It means a lot to us. As nearby neighbors, we understand and respect the concerns that have been raised regarding barking dogs. Many of us in the neighborhood have dogs, including us, and barking is something we experience from time to time. From our perspective, living just 3 houses away, the barking at Tracy's property has not been excessive or significantly different from what we hear from other dogs in the neighborhood, including our own. We also believe that it is important to acknowledge the efforts Tracy has made in response to the concerns that were raised. Since the last meeting, Gail and I have noticed a significant reduction in the amount of barking coming from her property. To us, that demonstrates that Tracy listened to her neighbors' concerns and took them seriously and made a genuine effort to address them. Our support for Tracy is based not only on our experience with her as someone who has cared for Nova, but also our experience with her as a neighbor. We believe that she provides a valuable service, operates responsibly, and has demonstrated a willingness to work with those around her. For those reasons, Gail and I fully support Tracy's application before the board. We believe she has made a sincere effort to balance the service she provides with being a responsible and considerate neighbor. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Next. Yes, ma'am? Yes, please, go ahead up. Have you signed in? Yes. Okay. You just give us your name and address for the record, please?
Good evening. My name is Ann Cohen, and I live at 20 Inwood Road in Auburn, and I'm within shouting distance of Tracy, so, you know, I'm kind of in a butter that way. I live almost directly across from Tom, so if he hears noise, I hear noise, and if he doesn't hear it, I don't hear it. But anyway, what I did want to say to the board is, I'm sure you've already got it. I have already submitted comments about this appeal in writing, but I have a few other little comments that I wish to add. One thing that distresses me about this appeal is that I don't think things should have risen to this level. Tracy McDonald is just trying to do what every citizen in this community does, make a living. Most sole entrepreneurs are of the homegrown variety. If their business is to succeed, it must fulfill a public need in order to attract customers. Tracy's dog walking service does exactly that. She fulfills a desperate need for people who work and wish to care for their dogs. Responsible, loving dog owners realize that their pets have needs beyond food and water. Dogs are incredibly social animals. They need exercise, stimulation, and companionship on a daily basis. Fulfilling these basic needs is very hard for many working people to do. That's why they turn to someone like Tracy, someone whom they trust and who they truly know cares for their beloved pets. A dog walking business, as small businesses go, is not a very intrusive enterprise. It is not loud, it does not cause any disruptive traffic, and generally blends in with the rest of the neighborhood. This is not the type of business you should be harassing. There are many people out there in town who believe that Tracy performs a vital service for them. If Tracy is not allowed to continue her business, many people will be extremely distraught and at a total loss for how to care for their pets. As a rule, most towns try to encourage and support local business. It's good for town revenue and fulfills a vital need for many residents. I do not understand the dust-up that has plagued Tracy in trying to maintain a necessary and profitable business, one that she has worked very hard to build and maintain. Please allow Tracy to continue with her dog walking business. If it is time to support small businesses in this town, especially when they aren't a nuisance to anyone. Thank you so much for listening. Good evening.
Thank you. Whoever would like to be next, please? That's okay. Take your time.
Hi, my name is Lisa Judkins. I actually live in Millbury, but I've worked in Auburn for the last 3 years, and I've known Tracy for 10 years. And she's taken care of my dog for 7 years with the dog walking. I'm a single parent. I run a nonprofit, and without her and her love for my dog and the safety she provides and the time, I wouldn't be able to do the important work that I do. So I understand that there's lots of rules in every town. Millbury has similar issues, but I think her business is very important and vital to the town of Auburn and should be allowed to continue.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am, go ahead. That's quite all right.
Hi, I'm Kathy Collins. I live at 47 Old Cut Road, which abuts Tracy in the back. And I first want to say that Tracy's a great neighbor. I have no problems whatsoever. The noise has been much better since the last time we came. So my only concerns are, what is the maximum number of dogs that you will be able to have in the yard at any time, including yours? And secondly, and this might be a little bit of a stretch, but does this variance continue if she were to leave? Or, so if they left and someone came in, would they be still allowed to do whatever kennel property, whatever services that might not be done in the way she's doing it? And I didn't know how those variances work.
So again, that's something that we're going to talk about during the course of the hearing here.
Okay.
And unfortunately, that's one of the issues we're going to have, is a variance is permanent.
Okay.
You can't make exceptions to it.
Okay.
It's the way the law is written. So it's one of the issues we're going to have to try to work through this evening.
Okay.
And that the board will discuss.
Okay, mostly curious. Thank you.
Absolutely. If there anybody else that wants to speak, if you haven't signed in yet, please feel free to come up, sign in.
So I'm Ken Kavanaugh. I live in 43 Old Cart Road, so about 2 houses from Kathy, so diagonally behind. I guess I just had some questions as well. One, the first question that was asked is, what is different from what was already declined before? And why would be coming to a different decision now? So that's one. I know last time we were talking about a dog kennel, and now I'm hearing dog walking. And I don't know what the difference is, if somebody's bringing the dog and they're being left there, to be walked. I don't know why that's different than a dog kennel that's taking care of the dogs for the day, or a doggy daycare. I'm not sure the difference between it, so I guess I wanted to understand that a bit more. Did you just say the variance is permanent?
Variances are permanent.
Yeah, that's part I would oppose to. And again, like many have said, she's a wonderful neighbor. I have absolutely no doubt about great care she gives to animals. No one wants to stop a business. All we're saying is operate that business in a business district. If you open up a dog kennel, there are certain requirements to having space around you in certain zoned areas that are designed for that. And it's the same as if you wanted to open up an auto repair shop. You have to open it up in an area that allows it, not just because you happen to have a garage attached to your house and say, I can fix a car. So that's my biggest thing, and especially the permanence of it would be a concern to me, because we specifically moved into a residential neighborhood. It does not have much cross-traffic whatsoever. Basically, if you don't live in the neighborhood, there's no reason to come down any of the roads by us, and they don't go to any place. They're all dead ends, and that's one of the appealing things in the neighborhood, was the lack of traffic, no businesses, and I would definitely be concerned about the permanence of it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Hello, I'm John Gagne. I live at 26 Inwood Road for the past 40 years, a lifelong resident. My daughter was the one that was attacked, as you guys remember, by the dogs at Tracy's. My daughter wanted me to say a few words. She wants me to say that she acknowledges that Tracy has apologized and has made an effort to make things safer, but doesn't want things to go back to the way they were before. She still has anxieties about walking down the street. And I have the same questions that a couple people have asked here. What is the difference? What we're going for here now? A daycare, which was on the application, is doggy daycare, doggy walking and doggy daycare. That requires kenneling. So we need to know how many dogs. Are we going back to the escalating to 10 to 15, whatever it was before, and how they're going to implement regulations and overseeing what's going on there.
Anyone else? Okay, so I think before we go ahead to the presentation, I just want to talk about what a variance actually is here. So under 9.5, variance from a specific requirement of this bylaw, including the variance authorized use not otherwise permitted in a particular zoning district, except uses prohibited in section 3.7, may be authorized by the Board of Appeals. So we have to have, under 9.5.5, the mandatory findings. Before the granting of any variance from the requirements of this bylaw, the Board of Appeals must specifically find that. And I've been corrected over the years, because I always felt as though we could have certain numbers, but they all have to apply. One is owning to the circumstances related to the soil conditions, shape, or topography of the land or structures, and especially affecting such land or structures, but not affecting generally the zoning district in which it is located. A literal enforcement of the provisions of this bylaw would involve substantial hardship, financial or otherwise. Two, that desirable relief may be granted without substantial detriment to the public good and without nullifying or substantially derogating from the intent and purpose of the bylaw. I think those are pretty much the ones that I would cover for there. And then in 9.6 is really what I would consider the appropriate, well, that's a different, but I would argue that this is really more of a special permit than it is a variance, because variances really apply to soil conditions, topography of a land, an unusually shaped lot, those types of things. It's not necessarily for picking apart a bylaw, I guess, if you will. But you want to hear the presentation first?
Yeah, no, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't disagree, so I'm quite curious on why they approach this as a variance. So I'm eager to hear why this is different than their previous presentation and why the variance.
Mr. Chairman, I'll proceed.
Yes, please.
Thank
go
you
ahead.
very much. I appreciate the board's time, and we appreciate the comments of the various abutters. My client, Tracy, was before the board on a number of different occasions. We're here today and decided that instead of trying to appeal the cease and desist letter that was received under 3.2.5 from the building inspector, that we decided it was appropriate to reapply and lay all the facts out on the table. So what I heard from various neighbors at the outset was that my client has taken appropriate measures to mitigate any of the impacts on the neighborhood. And if I watch the videos of the prior hearings, there was various noise was an issue, as well as property value. So I'm not aware of any issues with property values. There's been no evidence shown that there's any negative impact on property values whatsoever. In terms of the actual variance, we think it's a home occupation type of situation. And we think it's a home occupation type of situation that doesn't, I'm not aware that we applied for anything about a doggy daycare, like those words. I don't believe they came off of my keyboard or on this application in any way. But what we were looking for is permission from the board to allow dogs to be dropped off in the driveway and then walked by my client. So it's a dog walking business. And since the last hearing that my client was a part of here, she's been walking them off the property, meeting off the property, walking off the property. She's implemented various safety protocol, including a fence, including the carabiners, which I think were at issue during the last hearing. She also obtained what are called bark boxes, and those are electronic mechanisms that emit a vibration that when a dog barks, it stops them from barking. She's also been incredibly astute in not allowing the dogs, even her own dogs, to bark outside, bring them in immediately. She has gone out of her way to meet with various neighbors in the neighborhood and address them, door knocking and asking them about their concerns. The difference between the last time and this time is, A, the application, and it was mentioned briefly, there was an erroneous advice given by an agent of the town that prompted my client to apply for a 22-dog kennel license, which is never what it was supposed to be. The animal control officer, and that report was appended to this request for an accessory use to the home, called for 7. So she wants to comply with that. She wants to operate her business in a way that doesn't impact the neighbors. And whether, the issue of a special permit versus a variance, I understand, and I had initially saw it either as one or the other, because it seems like there may be a little bit of a gray area there. And I understand, the topograph issue may not be the most on point series of elements for this type of a request, but I think it's tough to say that a variance wouldn't be appropriate because it's an accessory use to the home. And if I look at 3.9.1.4, the keeping or raising of dogs, cats, or other pets, breeding or sale of dogs. So it's just like, it's arguably maybe the keeping of pets, but she's not really keeping them there. They're just there on a temporary basis. There might be a couple of cars a day. All transactions occur within the driveway. She's gone out of her way to make sure that there's no impact on traffic. Dog waste is appropriately dealt with, but the dog walking occurs off the property. So my client's, willing to abide by whatever conditions the board deems fit to see that the neighbors their concerns are dealt with appropriately. I understand that the concerns, especially of the neighbors who had the unfortunate incident with my client's dogs a few years ago. I don't want to mischaracterize it in time, but that's my understanding. It was a little while ago. It wasn't incredibly recently. Was it last year? Thank you. I'm sorry. I didn't want to mischaracterize it or mitigate it or minimize it in any way. So I'm not going to say that something like that could happen to anybody. My client, I believe, explained to the board at a prior hearing that it was just something that got away from her, and she's taken various actions to secure the dogs and add additional fence so that nothing like that could ever happen again. So what's different is the application itself is different. My client was much better informed in what she was applying for. She's trying to comply with what the ACO recommended, and I'm not going to say that the ACO's report was glowing, but it seemed to check all the boxes in an appropriate way and make an appropriate recommendation that my client wishes to abide by. In terms of non-compliance with that, we would expect the zoning inspector to enforce it appropriately. My client's met with all of the neighbors and asked them for their input and has tried to do everything she can to take those concerns into account and tailor things in a way that, and if you read the kind of the brief that the explanation that I provided to the board with the application, I mean, I'll just quote it. She's open to any conditions the board sees fit to ensure smooth operation of the dog walking business from her home. This includes having neighbors inform her if they're having an event or something, or for a period of time, they're making too much noise. But I think she's mitigated that. So if there's anything creative that the board sees that could assist my client in continuing to do what she does for a living, she definitely provides a vital service to the community. People use her, and we don't think there's a substantial impact. We do appreciate the trauma that was inflicted on that instance, but it's not something that has continued or existed prior to that incident. So although I'm not trying to minimize that, from my client's perspective and trying to advocate on her behalf, we think that it was an isolated incident and she's gone out of her way. I mean, she's here today, and her body posture, I think, tells you exactly, how she feels. And I'd like to say, too, that the assistant town manager and the resource coordinator for the town they've been very, very helpful, and everybody's been very nice to us during this process, and we do appreciate that. We understand the board has a job to do, and it has to do its job appropriately within its jurisdiction as it sees fit. But we'd ask the board to allow my client to continue to operate this and issue the variance, and with any restrictions that it deems necessary and appropriate to mitigate any concerns that were raised by any of the abutters at this meeting and any prior meeting.
I'm gonna go ahead, if there's no other abutters that want to comment again, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to the board. Yes, sir, go ahead.
I just have one question.
You have to approach the microphone, please, sir. Have to have it on the record.
Just want to know how many dogs a day there's going to be?
Maximum 7, that's the dog officer.
Is that counting your
Yes, yeah.
dogs?
That's counted.
Okay.
So just for the record, she stated it would be 7 maximum per the dog officer.
How long will the dogs be kenneled there?
So according to the report, the hours are between 7 and 3 for the drop-off, and the maximum is 7 dogs. So drop-offs will be, I will pick up dogs, I will drop off dogs. Some dogs will be dropped off, but it will be between the hours of 7 to 3. They will be put in my car, seatbelted. We will go to a walk location. I will bring them back home, and other dogs will be dropped off. I will walk them, I will bring them back home. So it will be a going back and forth. Some dogs I will be bringing home, some people will be picking up dogs. It depends on if they're in the neighborhood. Like Nova's parents, I will drop off and pick up. They're 3 houses down. I have a client on Old Cart, I will drop off and pick up. It depends where they are and their work hours to accommodate. Pick up with kids back to school, so I will accommodate whatever their needs are. But there is drop-off, pickup.
So I just, again, wanted to get a little bit of clarity on the difference from before, because if, it was mentioned that all the transactions are taking place in the driveway, but now it sounds like dogs will be staying at the residence for time periods, because no one's going to come with a dog, have you walk it, sit in the driveway, wait for you to come back from the walk, and then drive home with it. So clearly the dogs are staying there, which is back to being a kennel again, from 7 to 3 at some level of point. I'm not opposed to doing small business like this. I am opposed to the permanence of the variance. that once we open the door to a business in this community, that door never gets closed. And this person may be doing it just as dog walking, but if she sells it and the variance is there, what stops that next person from being a kennel? And we have no protection from that once it's approved. So that's my main concern is the permanence of it.
Understood. Thank you very much for your comments. Yes, sir. Did you happen to sign in by chance?
You did already, yes.
Excellent. Thank you.
Frank Thompson, 23 Inwood Road, direct neighbor to Tracy. Obviously, I will not, go over too much. I am very approved of what Tracy does. I think she's been a great neighbor. Previously, my grandparents lived at the residence for the last 50 years. I guess I would like to kind of know a little bit more about like the variance, and maybe this can mitigate some of the concern amongst that. One of the things we heard in previous discussions tonight is that with some of these variances and special orders, there is rules that would carry over. So if there is any type of rules that are set about this kennel or this dog walking business being in operation, wouldn't those carry over to any subsequent businesses that would fall under the same variance at that address, or would they not?
Well, so yeah, that's the issue with the variance. Again, they're permanent. They don't, and they're very difficult to remove, if not impossible.
Yeah, so I'm not asking about whether or not the variance can be removed or not. If there is rules set in place around the etiquette of that business in that variance, would those not carry over to any subsequent businesses?
Yes, you can condition a variance, but again, our experience has been when variances go to court, the variance itself supersedes any conditions, as where a special permit, it expires with the applicant. Let's just happen to say she moves. That special permit then literally disappears. It's no longer active, it's no longer available at that address, and the conditions have much more weight to them.
Gotcha. So the conditions will only carry really with the initial person who sets up the variance. Those don't continue over to the next.
So, correct. A special permit is only for the one person that's receiving it. A variance continues at that address in perpetuity, forever. We have one particular business in town that we've been dealing with for many, many years. I'll just give you an example. We won't mention the business, that it's been around since the 1960s. And it continues to operate with great concern of the abutters, but there's really very little or nothing we can do about it. So that's what the issue with the variance is for me.
All right, awesome. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? I'd like to be able to turn it over to the board for their questioning, if I could, please. Okay, Vice Chair Marion, to you, sir.
I'm going to reserve, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Cussy?
Yeah, so these dogs are going to be there from 7 o'clock till 3 o'clock?
You want to go ahead, back up, please?
I think it depends, Mr. Cussy, and thank you for the question. I think that my client has kind of a variation, for lack of a better term, with her operation, where sometimes they're picked up off property and dropped off property, and sometimes they're dropped off at the property, there for a very short period of time, and then either brought home or the individual will come back and pick up the dog. So I'm not trying to mince a yes or no question, but I am trying to just say that it varies.
Now, are they going to be walking the dogs in the neighborhood?
I want to be very clear, excuse me. I just want to be very clear, and it was stated in our application that no dogs are walked in the neighborhood, period. They're taken off-site, they're never walked in the neighborhood. And my client makes it a point of that, and she's, on advice of counsel, made an exceptional point to make sure that hasn't happened since the last meeting, but it's never been her intent or her operation to do so, to my understanding.
Dogs will be in the yard during the day, or will they be indoors?
There's a fenced off, I included a few pictures with the application. I think that the board does have those pictures. I'm not sure if they're illustrative enough, but there's 2 yards there. They're both fenced in, so that if dogs do have to stay there for a short period, they're in one of the fenced yards. And if for some reason they aren't getting along, or whatever the issue may be, there's a separating fence that my client will be able to put those dogs in to mitigate any issues of barking or anything else that could be a problem. Thank you.
So there'll be a total of 7 dogs maximum at the property at one time?
Including my client's own dogs.
How many dogs does she have?
3.
Okay, so there would be a maximum of 4 outside dogs.
And that would be a maximum. That's not going to be 4
Okay.
dogs at all times. No.
Okay. All right, that's all I have for now.
Mr. Shea?
Just a couple questions, and I'll go easy. Promise. In your letter to the board, it states that you pick up dogs at individuals' properties or have the dogs dropped off at your residence, and then you take them for a walk. Wouldn't it be easier and a lot less hassle just to go and pick up the dogs and take them for a walk? Instead of having the residents or, the people bring them to your place?
My client has been able to operate that way since the last hearing and since the cease and desist order went out, regardless of the section that it was issued under. On the advice of counsel, that's what she's been doing. So if the board were to issue it on a very limited basis, my client would be accepting of that and would be appreciative of that. Of course, she'd like to be able to offer her clients the convenience of being able to drop it off, to drop off a dog. But we also understand that the board has a job to do and to balance, the issues in the community. So my client would be open to that, and she's operated the business that way. But it does limit her ability to service some customers, and we'd ask the board to consider that.
One more question. You get paid for your services?
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay. So my only comments are, I feel as though that the request for a variance is outside the scope of a variance, in my view of what this application is for, particularly with the permanence. I do, however, recognize the effort of the applicant, who has made substantial changes to her business model in an effort to keep the business open, and I do believe she's also providing a fair service to the community as well. I find this to be more of a special permit issue that we can put conditions on, should the board see it to approve, rather than a variance because of the permanency of it. And I'm not, I'm just putting my 2 cents in. I think that the prudent move, if the board is considering approving it or not, I don't know, but I think the best course of action would be to, again, continue this so they can sort out their paperwork and make sure that they're applying properly, because I think the climb for a variance is a very tall, very, very, very steep climb.
Definitely.
I think, and again, she's made efforts to change her business model. She's made efforts to modify what she does at her property. She's guaranteed that she's not going to be walking pets in the neighborhood, and she's hired an attorney to continue this on. I think, at the very least, the board, I think, should recognize the fact that there was a substantial change in effort made to hear the hearing. Again, that's just my comments, and I'd like to refer back to you all.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. President?
I just had a question on 3.9.1.2. A home occupation other than retail sales should be conducted entirely within the dwelling. So it's stating that home occupation other than retail sales conducted entirely.
And that's another good point. I mean, yeah, 3.9,
That's what they're coming in with.
Mr. Chairman, if I may jump in briefly?
please, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. We did apply for the special permit and/or the variance, depending on how the board saw it. So, we've been discussing special permit issues all night. It's checked off on the application. When I talk about it in my brief to the board, we're talking specifically about a variance and/or special permit. So we asked the board to just consider it as a special permit rather than continue it. We do believe our paperwork is in order.
Was advertised as a special permit too, so, in the agenda.
If I may,
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
You may.
So, it wasn't and/or, it was a variance for an accessory use and a special permit for a home occupation. Mr. Cussey's correct in that the home occupation language stipulates it to be inside the home. So I don't think it falls in that category. I would agree with the chairman, this is, the rigor of a variance is not going to be met here. This will not reach the climb of a variance. But in addition to that, I was certainly open to hear, from this hearing to the last, what the substantial difference was in this application. And I must admit that I don't see a difference. I think there have been modifications, but this is still dressed as a request for a kennel operation and dog walking. And that's what was before us before. That's what we litigated before. So this is not a substantial difference or a substantial change than the first application. The language of a variance is certainly different, but what we've been asked to weigh on the business that's before us, in my view, Mr. Chairman, is not a departure from what was originally requested and originally denied.
Okay. I appreciate those concerns. And to me, I mean, again, I'm just looking at the table of uses here, and I'm just going through as quickly as I can to find things. And at 32510, veterinary care, shelter, or kennel would be the only thing that I really would see fit. At least, again, I'm just doing a very quick read-through here. Yeah, because then it goes on a...
Yeah, respectfully, Mr. Chairman, I mean, I appreciate your effort. I mean, that's not what's
not
been,
before us
it's
this
not what's been proposed.
Right.
I mean, I think we've given great latitude this evening for this hearing, but what hasn't been clear to me is why we should consider this a substantial difference than what the first application was. And so, before we even get to the challenge of a variance, I would suggest that I don't know that this hearing should, on its merits, be considered based on the fact that it's not different than the first proposal.
All right. Mr. Cussy, you have any comments on the vice chair's position?
So what do we recommend, to continue? Is that what you're thinking?
I wouldn't recommend that they continue. I would recommend a withdrawal.
A withdrawal?
Because I don't see this as an application that we would entertain as being different than the first time this applicant came before us and asked for the same thing. It's dressed differently. It's the same business.
Okay.
And that business was denied. And I'm willing to keep the public portion of the hearing open if the applicant's attorney has any comments, but that's where I land. I don't think this is substantially different. There's not a substantive change to this application than what was before us previously for us to consider this a substantial change, which in my view would have closed the door on this for 2 years since the last hearing, when we voted it down.
Okay.
And I'm open to be challenged, or if I have this incorrectly. I know that we've got a great deal of talent in the audience with Mr. Assistant Town Manager, if I'm over my skis here on this. But that's, and the board would have to weigh in on whether or not they feel that this is different enough of an application. But this is the same activity, it's the same business. They're kenneling the dogs for a period of time during the day. That's what was asked for previously. And that was denied. And respectfully, this will not make the challenge of, this will not make the climb of a variance.
Right.
At best, this is a special permit that I don't believe should be heard this evening.
Okay. Ms. Bush?
So I agree with the variance. I don't think it meets the requirements for a variance. I would have to watch the last meeting, but my recollection was there were more like doggy daycare customers where they were being dropped off, and they're suggesting that she's taking them off-site, not walking them in the neighborhood. So, I mean, especially if she's willing to just pick up dogs and walk them off-site, I think that would be a difference. Not walking them, and I would have to see the meeting again because I don't remember it exactly, but I think there were more dogs staying on the property. I think it was more than 7, and I think there were overnights, and I don't think they addressed this, but I don't think the plan is to have them for overnights at this point. They can speak to that. I think it said in the brief it was specifically 7 to 3, so there's no overnights, and they're not really, I guess there's more off-site walking, so it could be, I don't know how substantially different it would have to be. But if she's just leaving her property and taking dogs, picking them up at their own house and bringing them back and not bringing them back to her house, that would be different. And I think they suggested that they were open to that as well, so.
Do you have any further comments, Mr. Shea?
I tend to agree with the vice chair 100% on what he's saying, is to table this until the next meeting and see if anything has been straightened out.
Okay. I think what we have here are kind of a split board. I think, like Ms. Bush and I agree that might be some substantial changes to the application, and I think that we have a couple that say that there isn't. I think maybe the best course of action, and again, I'm just suggesting, I think taking Mr. Shea's comments under consideration would be, let's get the definition of a kennel, what defines it. I think it, may or may not be
It's 5 or more dogs, right?
5 or more dogs, but what, are we, is there a time frame for storage? Hope that's not, is that my truck? I hope not. It was.
It's time to go home.
Mr. Chairman, my alarm must have went off.
Mr. Chairman, I think we've got some guidance that...
Oh,
might
yeah,
be
please, go ahead.
Through the chair, I don't know if this is going to clarify things or not, but just on the matter of the previous application, it was incorrectly submitted upon advice of previous staff and incorrectly advertised. So the primary use of this property is as a residence. So the use table doesn't come into play here.
Understood.
So that's why it kicks over to the accessory uses. And the only accessory use that fit the bill, so to speak, was the home-based business. The issue at the time was how much of that activity was taking place inside the residence, which, as was correctly pointed out, our zoning bylaw limits it to indoor activities. Under the previous conception, my understanding, and I think other people's understanding, was it was a more elaborate doggy daycare situation with dogs being in the yard frequently, as opposed to going off-site. So, just in terms of the different kinds of uses, the use table is helpful and provides some guidance as to what's appropriate in certain neighborhoods, but the primary use of this property is a residence.
Right.
And so it's a question of, so the question, I think, and board and council could correct me, is whether the special permit aspect to it, or whether the home-based business, based on the new information that the dogs are primarily being not, the activity proposed is not happening actually on the residence in the house, it's happening elsewhere. So is that indoor, is the home-based business indoor because the business transaction is taking place inside and the walking is taking place elsewhere? That's maybe something for the board to parse out. Relative to the variance, again, not to throw a tremendous curveball into the situation here, in July, the state changed the rules relative to variances. We are still seeking guidance from council on what the implications are, but my understanding is that the variances, I think as was pointed out before, variances traditionally require like a 4-point test of different characteristics,
Correct.
topography, shape, et cetera. The state, I believe, has made that, so that was mandatory. Now I believe the state has made that optional. And so the board may consider it, but they don't have to consider it, whereas in the past, they had to consider those options. We're still seeking guidance because the intent of that was relative to housing. Because apparently in other parts of the state, people were trying to get variances for housing and were getting shot down.
Right.
So the state trying to increase housing, I and other planners are still trying to understand the nuances of what has been enacted. But variances, the guidance is still there, but it may not be, those findings might not be as required as they were before, but they may be characteristics that could be considered. We're still seeking guidance on that part. But the variance part, the reason I believe council may have applied for variance was that on that point of the indoor versus outdoor use on the home occupation. I don't want to misspeak that, but I think that was, because it is a gray area, I think that's why they applied for special permit versus variance. So, so my opinion, it is a different application because it was wrongly done last time. It doesn't mean that the board has to grant it. It doesn't mean that the board has to be in favor, for, or against it. It just means procedurally we had to do it a different way, because the way it was done previous was that the entire property was primarily becoming a kennel, which it was not. It was still going to be a residence. So there's some slight nuances there. Probably doesn't help the board make their decision, but it just at least it clarifies a bit of the lanes the ZBA needs to sort of travel in on this one, I would suggest.
Oh, okay, so that makes sense for the...
It does.
New
Can I ask a follow-up question before we let you sit down? Sorry.
Yeah.
Thank you. So with the new guidance on variances, I'm assuming that if the criteria has become optional, that the fact that a variance sticks with a particular property for perpetuity, I expect that has not gone away. Is that correct?
That's one of the questions I don't think I have an answer to right now.
Can we go on the assumption that it does, in fact, land with the property under perpetuity?
My understanding was, and I think it's on relative to a different matter, special permits may or may not be conditioned on ownership. Variances do not depend on ownership at all and run with the land. That was my understanding, and that's still my assumption unless I learn something different.
Well, thanks for pulling us back into the guardrail. Well done.
So with the new information, I would be inclined to, and again, I'm only speaking for myself, I would be inclined to consider a special permit with a limit of 4 dogs, that they are not walked in the neighborhood, if, again, this is just what the board approves. And we could limit them to, say, no longer than 4 hours each dog. You know, again, it could overlap. It could be one dog gets dropped off at noontime, stays till 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock. One dog gets dropped off at 8 a.m., stays till noon. You know what I mean? But each dog should be limited to a 3-hour or 4-hour window period. And I know it's difficult to enforce, but it's the question of having the ability, if a butter is unhappy with what's going on, then it gives authority to the animal control.
Will she be able to inspect?
And that's the other part of it.
Without a kennel license?
Without a kennel license, and if, let's just hypothetically say she continues to operate, there's nothing that they have the right to enter the property and see anything. If we grant it, the special permit with the licenses, the dog officer or the animal control officer has the ability to visit the property frequently.
But she's not asking, Mr. Chairman, for a kennel license this evening.
No.
Okay.
That's what I mean.
I don't disagree.
Again, but we can condition that.
And I know that you're solution-based, but she's not asking for that. She's asking for a home occupation and a variance.
So then, why don't we suggest a continuance, sort some...
Please correct me, please, please.
Again, I'm trying to work out, I recognize there's a majority of the people here, I know there's some against it, the majority of the people here are for it. I recognize the value of the business itself as far as dog walking. You know, you have a dog at home, you have most people that have to work outside of the house these days. I think it's a great service to provide, it's a way to make income, so I recognize all those things, but I think the paperwork has to be sorted somewhat, and I think we have to check with the animal control to make sure that they're going to have access to the property as needed.
So, I will not speak for animal control on this, but my understanding is there's a 2-part process to this. There is a kennel license that will have to be obtained from the town clerk's office, which is signed off on also by the animal control officer. So I think, if I understand correctly, Ms. McDonald's been waiting the results of this procedure. So the kennel license is triggered because there would be more than 5 dogs on the property.
Right.
Well, up to 7 is what's being proposed, but I think the trigger on our end is 5. So this board would not be issuing any kennel license. The town clerk, in conjunction with the animal control officer, would issue the kennel license. Even though we have a kennel use in our zoning table.
But, Mr. Chairman, if I may, holistically, the kennel license is what we shot down last time. which is consistent with my earlier comments of this is not a change.
I will not, well, I would again suggest again that what was proposed in January was not a kennel, it was a home business that involved dogs, and so staff guided it towards a kennel application. But again, the primary use, it's going to be one primary use on a property. The primary use of the property is a residence. And so the kennel, we have accessory language, as you know, under 9.4, that has the conditions of different animal thresholds. That was then changed in last October. So which had changed the numbers slightly. So that's why that is. Again, may not change the end result, but we couldn't deny a kennel because it wasn't a kennel. It was a home business.
And I think, to add to that, is I think the town evaluated the application and determined, if I could speak on that, that there was substantial change to allow it to come back before the board.
Mr. Chairman, we could entertain another
Yes,
comment.
go right ahead. Please, sir, we haven't closed the hearing yet, so.
Appreciate it. So one of the things I would like to ask is, if we're talking about continuances or not continuances, special permits, is can you at least vote on the variance tonight? Because that's the permanence of it. They can always apply for a special permit, I'm assuming, and you can always continue the special permit concept, but at least the variance would allow us to know whether or not there's a permanent change to the property. And that feels to me like we should be able to vote on that, and then decide the other aspect later. As far as being kennel, not a kennel, they've already heard that they put up multiple sets of fences to keep dogs separated. That sounds like a kennel. There's a purpose for putting up those fences. If the walking's happening off the property, then I'm not sure why we need a business on the property at all. If we're picking up dogs away from the property, walking dogs away from the property doesn't need to be involved, and no one's trying to stop the dog walking business. That can continue. If you
I don't
approve-
disagree with you. I see I feel like it's muddled, and that's why I have
Right.
an interest in making a continuance effort, is because I think there is substantial change, but I think the substantial changes need to be clarified a little bit better.
Right, and if we approve a permit for 7 to 5, 7 to 3, whatever it is, I don't know how it could possibly be enforced to know how long a dog is there or how many dogs,
again-
you know. That's all, that's.
Right, and I agree.
I'm not opposed to the business, I'm, again, just a wonderful neighbor, loves the dogs, and plenty of people in support that use their services, because it's a great service. I'm not disputing that.
And I
Just the variance.
completely agree. Again, I was just putting that out there to try to come up with some solutions for the situation.
Well, of course, you're wrong, Mr. Chairman, but it is not a substantial difference in the first application. We're splicing hairs and we're dressing it up in a different way. But I wouldn't be opposed to certainly voting on the variance so that we can bring this to a close.
Okay? So do I have a motion to close the public portion of the hearing?
I'm going to give the applicant any opportunity to speak.
Okay, go
given
ahead.
that he's poised.
Nothing to add. I mean, we've already gone over it. Mr. Delaquila did a great job kind of enumerating the differences that happened, and the fact that my client had been erroneously informed by the town previously, a town employee, to apply for a 22-dog kennel license, which is what was shot down initially. This is a different situation. We're looking for a variance for a home occupation. These appear to be completely different concepts. So, we would say that it's absolutely different. My client's open to whatever conditions the board feels appropriate, and a couple of the board members have seemed to have ideas along the line of what my client has in mind in terms of walking the dogs off property. She still has to run the business from there, so we'd ask the board to, if they're going to vote down the variance, which it seems like there's the temperature on the variance isn't too warm, that we approve a special permit, which was requested for the home occupation. And no one's kenneling dogs, no one's keeping them there or boarding them. So I mean, we talk about the definition of kenneling. I think a temporary drop-off which we discussed earlier tonight about, about a sniff spot. We don't really think that that's necessarily regulated.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, I think we've had enough comments on, do we have any, oh, go
I
ahead.
think we're just at the end.
Again, Mr. Chair, Paul Delacour, Assistant Town Manager. Just to potentially lend the board some additional guidance, if you were to vote, just be cognizant of if you're going to approve one or deny one, continue one, make sure to take the motions individually. Because if, for example, I'm just putting on a scenario, if the board's temperature is to not grant the variance, but wants to, quote-unquote, continue the special permit, whether they want to, if you want to continue the hearing, you have to, I'm just making sure, if we want to continue the special permit hearing, we have to continue the special permit hearing separately than denying a variance.
Correct, yeah.
And if the board you may also decide to close the hearing on the special permit and wait till the next meeting to make your decision. So how you make that motion depends on whether or not the public would be able to weigh in again on one application or another. Just suggesting to the board, make sure we make clear motions so that way we don't hang ourselves up or hang up the applicant.
No, I appreciate that, thank you. Okay. Do I have a motion to close the public portion of the hearing?
Mr. Chairman, motion to close the public portion of the hearing.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, seeing none. All right, we'll go around one more time. Vice Chair Maron?
Okay, so I think I've made my position clear on this.
You have.
And so I won't belabor or be repetitive. But one of the topics that came up, albeit briefly this evening, it came up heavily in the last hearing, is under this applicant's care, the substantial damage that was done to someone in the neighborhood for this. And so there's been a great deal of affidavit testimony submitted for this applicant's character, how she proceeds, how she conducts her business. But I'm not willing to take off the table that under her responsibility, this girl's life was changed. And so that needs to be a factor. If we condition a special permit for certain hours of operation or how she conducts her business or she does it off-site, off the property, we don't have any teeth on control of that. Now, I'm not suggesting it'll be nefarious, but I'm saying that we don't have control mechanisms that's going to lock it down to make sure that what we've told the public is going to happen there is going to happen, because we don't have a policing effort that's actually going to do that.
Understood.
I'll leave it at there, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, sir.
All right, Mr. Cussy?
Yeah, my only issue here is that home occupation other than retail sales conducted entirely in the dwelling.
Okay.
I don't know how you get around that. The dogs are going to be outdoors in kennels. That's just my one.
I think the way we get around that is condition it that the dog walking has to be off-site, she has to go. And the business is conducted in our house, like scheduling the appointments and everything, so that would still require a special permit for a business, but I guess the only way to get around it is saying you'd have to do it off-site, and I know we don't have teeth to enforce that, but we don't have teeth to enforce any of our special permits for home occupations, so.
Dogs are going to be there in the kennel. That's what
If they're not, that's what I'm saying, if we say that she has to go pick them up at a different site, walk them off-site and leave them off-site and does not bring them back to her house.
yeah, then she doesn't need a permit at all.
Well, I think she would if she's running a business.
Oh, she's charging. Okay. That makes sense. Yeah.
I kind of agree of, go pick up the dogs, walk them in a different location, do not come back to your house with them, bring them back to where they belong. I see this go on across town all day long, in my own neighborhood and whatnot. And then that eliminates a lot of problems for everybody.
Right.
I honestly think that's the best solution. Like I said, I see this in my own neighborhood. I see it in other towns. I know people that do it, and they don't bring the dogs back to their homes. They go out, They even do pet sitting. They go out and they pet sit for a couple of hours in the owner's home, you know, the dog owner's home. And that eliminates all this problem. The biggest problem I see with putting a variance on this is now at some point, they're gonna sell the house.
Right.
And it has this variance locked in there. What does that do to the other property values? Okay?
Yeah, understood.
So that's where I feel on it.
Okay. I don't have any, I've made my comments, so I don't have anything further to add to it. So what I'll do is, I'm going to go ahead and read again. So we have the 6:20 PM applicant Tracy McDonald requesting a variance for accessory use under section 3912 and 3914 of the Auburn zoning bylaw, and a special permit for a home occupation under section 3912 and 3914 of the Auburn zoning bylaw at 25 Inwood Road, map 31, parcel 40. Subject property is located in the residential RA zoning district. So do I have a motion for the first one for a variance accessory use under 3912 and 3914?
Make a motion to deny.
All right, we have a motion to deny. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, we'll do a roll call vote. Vice Chair Maron?
Deny.
Mr. Cussy?
Deny.
Ms. Bush?
Deny the variance.
And Mr. Shea votes to deny, and I vote to deny. Our second one is the Auburn zoning bylaw special permit for a home occupation under section 3912 and 3914 of the Auburn zoning bylaw at 25 Inwood Road, map 31, parcel 40. Subject property is located in the residential zoning district. Do I have a motion?
Make a motion to deny.
Do I have a second?
I deny.
All right, we'll do a roll call vote. Vice Chair Maron?
Deny.
Mr. Cussy?
Deny.
Ms. Bush?
I approve.
You approve? Mr. Shea?
Deny.
Deny, all right, and I vote to deny. It's going to be a split vote anyway, so I wish we could work out better for that, but that's how it's going to stand this evening. Do I have a motion to close the hearing?
Mr. Chairman, motion to close the hearing.
Thank you very much. This concludes all of our hearings this evening. We just have some administrative responsibilities to take care of, and we'll close the meeting. So we have decisions for approval for the applicant Linda Lupacino, requesting a special permit for kennel at 399 Oxford Street. We have approval of Lisa Corey of Pobco, and approval for 224A Southbridge Street LLC, requesting a variance. So we have 3 to sign, and it all depends if you voted on those or not. You just pass them right down? Thank you. There's one for you.
I was going to feel it's now.
Got writer's cramp?
You just got to get a little...
2 for you. Three for you. There you go. And let me see, so we have the 3 decisions that we are signing. We have the minutes from 7/16/26 to accept. Do I have a motion to accept the minutes as submitted?
Mr. Chairman, motion to accept the minutes as submitted.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, seeing none, the minutes are accepted. Our next meeting is 9/17/26, and do I have a motion to adjourn?
Mr. Chairman, motion to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, seeing none. Thank you very much.